All right, welcome. The Galactic Historian Office Hours. How's everyone doing tonight? Let's see, we got Yuri, Commander Thrud, Ash Holding for that subscription to Twitch Prime for 5 months. We got Nikolovs, JP, got Albin Aquino, Michaels. Welcome, guys. Regatta. I thought I saw somebody else in here. Dano, welcome, guys. Welcome. Welcome one, welcome all. Viper, how's it going? Let's get to the office, shall we? Hello and welcome back to Galactic Historian Office Hours. I need to change that because I forgot to change it from the weekend. We did the Fate Train editions. Welcome one and all, guys. My name is Paul. This is the Astropub. I am the host of Galactic Historian, or the host of Captain's Table, and your professor of Galactic Historian, and the host of the Astropub. Welcome to my sort of week off. I say sort of because my plan is to do this and then not do another stream until Saturday when we do TSMR and Captain's Table. And that's it. Now, that may not happen because they may just decide to drop wave 1 of PTU. So we might do that. But I definitely need some time off away from this. So if it doesn't happen this week, it'll happen next week. Taking S6 SCU. Oh, God. I'm doing well there, Thrud. Thank you so much there. Cupan. JP. Go pee then, Papa Dovac. Don't be... What the hell, man? Soki, thanks so much for that 5 months of subscription. Yeah, I'm not going to be streaming on Wednesday. Yeah. For those who don't know, there's been many people who have been accused of sexual misconduct in the streaming space. I think it's against TOS for me to talk about who those people are on Twitch. But I'm not gonna like make this a big thing about that. No one in the Star Citizen community, as far as I know, has been accused. But it's a big deal, and they're doing. Twitch has done its usual song and dance of like, we care about your feelings, and we're looking into this. Please let us know. It's corporate double speak, but they're not gonna actually do anything. So there are people who are doing things like. I think Wednesday they're gonna do a blackout. So like a I don't know how to put it. Like it's kind of like what they did with the protests for Black Lives Matter, where it's like people are not going to stream on Twitch that day, just as a way of try to show Twitch that, you know, it's kind of like a protest against Twitch. I wasn't planning on streaming anyways on Wednesday, but I'm honestly double thinking or like rethinking my own approach to Twitch and YouTube and stuff like that. I'm doing fine in terms of content, but I'm finding myself more and more not drained, but more wondering if streaming is necessarily the best platform for me. Like Twitch is the best platform for me to do this and streaming and stuff like that. I likely will never get rid of this. I'm not going to get rid of the Captain's Table at TSMR. I have a lot of fun doing those. Those are really popular. So in both cases, you know, all of these are stuff I'd like to do. But when it comes to like regular game streaming, I'm finding that more and more it's chasing the tail of whatever is the most prevalent in like the Star Citizen universe. You know, for a while it was like 50v or 25v25 matches, pre-made PvP. Then it was PvP. Then it was, you know, giveaways. Giveaways always been a big portion of it. Star Citizen Twitch, but like it's been like I'm new. If you're new, ask me questions because it really worked for Burks. Everyone's chasing whatever the top streamer is doing. And I kind of don't care, if that makes sense. There's a lot of people out there who are like trying to make it on Twitch. And a lot of them are putting a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of effort. And I'm not saying I'm not, but like the career on Twitch, which is fine. That's just not my chasing. I want to take it seriously, but I don't want it to like be huge. And I'm not looking to be, you know, Burke Black, you know, at the upper end of things in my wildest dreams, in some some fever dream in the distant future when, you know, I can make more than 10K a year on this thing, which is still a lot of money, don't get me wrong. But you know, most of it goes back into giveaways and stuff for the computers and stuff like that. It's just a nice hobby that pays for itself that I treat kind of like a job. But in my distant future where I can, you know, where it's more of a profitable venture and all these kind of things, I might make like Captain Richard's numbers kind of thing. And I'm sorry for those of you guys who are watching this on YouTube and stuff like that have no context to what the hell I'm saying. My point is that I am trying to rethink my approach to Twitch. So we may be experimenting with some things. I may just lessen my time streaming. That'll hurt me financially, so it means I'll have to leverage on other things if I want to continue to kind of do the same kind of content, same speeds, lots of stuff like that. So just note that this break is going to happen more often, and we may not be doing things all the time, so we'll see. Drop Twitch for a physical bar. Man, I'd make more money and I'd be a lot more stressed. That's the thing though, Yuri. I'm not burned out on Star Citizen. I'm not burned out on Star Citizen. I'm not even burned out on Twitch. I'm just rethinking. There's an old adage, which you've probably all heard, which is work smarter, not harder. And the last thing I want to do, I'm going to turn this down a little bit because I had a comment saying that the music was way too loud and they couldn't hear me. So, but the problem is with Twitch is that often the only way you can get seen or you can grow your audience is by streaming frequently, like all the time. And it's a huge time commitment. And I want to do other things as well. So again, we'll see. Because YouTube's doing pretty well overall. And I'm not making Twitch money, but you know, I'm just letting you know that it's up in the air. There's some stuff that's going on in the background that's making me kind of go, whoa, where am I right now? What's going on? This is where I plug my Patreon. So if you guys want to support Galactic Historian on Patreon, you can. We have 13 patrons, and we were making $228, which is not bad. That's not bad at all. I mean, I think I get most of it. I don't know if that's all money I get because I know Patreon takes a cut of it. So around over $150, probably like $190 a month, which is not bad. All right, let's get some notifications. All right, this was done 5 days ago. I don't know if it was fully in there, but we'll talk about this one question. This is a Patreon question. I do want to shout out my Patreons real quickly who are still here. Old Man Zim, The Doctor, Spirian, Ken Lord, Renegade Shank, Buster the Destroyer, Ghost, Papa Dolvak, Matty LaRusso, Tree0311, The Huntress, and Lonnie Martin. Thank you guys all for backing us on Patreon. I gotta put a Patreon something up there, but well, I'll have it up at some point. Your Patreon, yes. The rarity of sandworms. Thank you there, Stick. What I think about the best streamers, it's one of the things doing their own thing entirely. Yeah. It'll probably be better to stream it when 2 games actually release. It's not that I don't want to stream, guys. I've streamed Star Citizen for 4 years. It's just I've got to reapproach Star Citizen in a way that I feel like is fun and makes sense. That also is doing something unique. Stuff like this is fun. I mean, a lot of these ideas I took from Board Gamer, who I saw doing this, and I decided to add a little twist onto it. Zero to Hero is fun, but it's not my original idea. The bar streams are fun to do those kind of things. These are all fun. It's just more about how can I make it fun and less taxing. You know what I mean? What's the deal with sandworms on Lyria? On Lyria? There's no sandworms on Lyria. Not that I know of. There's sandworms on Lear. And it's only on Lear, I want to say 3? Maybe Lear 2? I always get them confused. About Rome UEE. Thank you, Stick. Yeah, I haven't gone through and Execute was like, yo, there's some questions on on the video. Go watch it. Go talk about it there, Paul and Algrid. I was like, oh god, now? Like, okay, I just haven't done that yet. You can stream on Mixer. Oh, wait. Oh, I don't want to laugh at that because a lot of people lost their jobs and their careers doing that. That's not fun. Rarity of sandworms. They're pretty rare. I think you'd really only find them in one place, which is Lyra, I think. Is your twist lemon flavored? It is lemon flavored. Their Death Factor. Game changes, content's gotta change with it. Yeah. Do you think that Vanduul will push the UEE into UEE space and hold it for their own when the game goes live? I think the way that CIG likes to write their stories is leaving it up to the players. So I think that will probably happen, but depending on if they hold it or not will depend on what players do what. There will be situations where that CIG will basically force you to either take action or by inaction let something happen. So, for instance, the Xenothreat stuff that's been found in some of the audio files, it seems like the way that it's being designed is that you cannot fight for the Xenothreat. You can either fight the Xenothreat or do nothing. And depending on how players react to that will determine what happens in that kind of storyline and how long it takes. In some cases, it'll probably be more scripted because they want it to happen and they just want players to experience it. But in a lot of cases, they seem to be very open to the idea of this thing happens. What do players do? If whatever happens with those players do, they will branch off into 1 or 2 or 5 different options that could happen based off of the player's reaction to it. That's very much how CIG likes to tell stories, which is the reason why in most of the lore, there are huge open areas, like who are the Cathach? What happened to the Tevarin on Cabal? You know, what's the relationship between the UEE and the Xi'an? You know, what about the Synth World project? What about the Ark? Who's going to get the capital, Terra or Earth? Will there be a civil war between Terra and Earth? What's happening on with the Outlaw Confederacy? What's the Banu's homeworld? Like all of these questions. What happened to the Hadesians? All of these questions in lore are left up because they want to let the players discover it, and the players' actions dictate what actually is going to be the outcome. That's what they're waiting for. We just started there, Shady. Saying it was only specific on whatever the demo was. Yeah. How common are cybernetics in the cybernetics or cyborgs in the verse universe? They are present. At least we know that. I'm blanking on her name. She has a prosthetic limb, cybernetic limb. We've seen concept art of them doing full, like almost full cybernetic replacements, like full dive replacements, a la like Ghost in the Shell. But we also, I'm fairly certain, based off of lore, there's like growth technology, so you can like regrow limbs and stuff like that, so you don't have to get cybernetics. But cybernetics are definitely a thing in the game. They're fairly common. And the question is more, with cybernetics, is more about around, do you want something that'll give you enhanced abilities or normal genetic stuff, which isn't as vulnerable to things like EMP attacks or energy attacks. The idea is it's to build in a trade-off, but it's also a kind of a lore thing. You want to walk around Terra looking like a robot. Like, that's a question. Not Rudo, because Rudo is a different one. Rekko Battaglia, I think is her name. Yeah. And Twitch has cybernetic eyes, yeah. Because she has she got in an accident. So her eyes had to be replaced after the accident. Rekko Battaglia. She has the cybernetic limb. We're likely to see people with leg. We're likely to see cybernetic arms, full cybernetic replacements, all that kind of stuff. Take your own angle on Star Citizen, share that brain power knowledge. Yeah, mate, we'll always want to know more. Well, Stick, here's the thing. I already do that. It's called Galactic Historian, ! GH in chat. You'll be able to see it there. That has a list of, I want to say 60 plus episodes. Some of the earlier ones are lectures, so they're not very engaging. There's a lot of information, and some of them are like an hour long, but they're fairly info dumpy. And then I do better. I started doing episodes, and I started doing like edited and pre-written and scripted and all that kind of stuff. And those have been what I've been doing recently. And those are a little bit shorter on average, but so if you want to know more, check that out. Have cyberparks when they respawn? Only sometimes, Yuri. The way that they've talked about that in the past is the idea is that after a certain amount of time you respawn with a cybernetic arm or a leg or something like that, rather than your normal one. So. She also from yeah, Rudo's the drug dealer. Well, not really. Rudo's not a drug dealer. Rudo is he's a contract. He's a subcontractor for the big hitmen. I don't know if most of his stuff are for big gangs. Most of his stuff is from the Dusters, and you do a lot of like assassination work with Rudo. He's like a hitman, a contractor for hitmen. Nice, man. Very on your mind? Okay, yeah. Think Ghost in the Shell, but likely there's going to be some downsides to having a full cybernetic body. Because like an EMP grenade, which is something they've talked about having in the past, or these, like the electro weapons, are designed to take out cybernetics. So it's not that dangerous. Will places be destructible? No. Yes and no. You're not going to have fully procedural destructible environments in Star Citizen, at least not yet. And you won't be able to like blow up a station piece by piece. But they technically have health levels, so you could do it. It just takes a long time. Do you think Ords will have a role in influencing lore at some point? Yeah. So no street samurais? No street samurais. You got to remember that in Star Citizen, the equivalent of street samurais or of like cyberpunks are the pirates, are the gangs. They're really more like that kind of style where they're like fighting the system, but also kind of criminals and that sort of thing. So the pirates of the Star Citizen universe, the gangs of the Star Citizen universe, who like the Nine Tails, the Dusters, the Nova Riders, the Low Riders, those crews are the Horizon crew. These are all like counterculture rebels. I said it in the Outlaws of Stanton video. An outlaw is basically a counterculture with large caliber firearms. The gangs are counterculture with large caliber firearms in the Star Citizen universe. So it's not the same, but it's in the same kind of vein. Whereas like people were getting cybernetics as a way of like improving their chances to survive, but also to say F the system kind of thing. So. Yeah, they have to be coordinated enough for that, Yuri. That's the problem. Thanks for the subscription there, Blowers. Thanks for that follow, man. That's awesome. As long as the Matadors don't, I'm cool with the orgs influencing lore. But seriously, what a waste of non-talent. Ouch, Bowers. Ouch. Now we're okay with that. Hope you feel better. Oh, thank you there, Silkies. I didn't see that. Thank you for that subscription as well. I'm feeling fine. I just need some time to like not be on the rat race, and it's just weird because I'm saying, oh, it's a break, but I'm still making an episode. For those who know, the next Galactic Historian episode is being, as I've already recorded it. I just got to edit it, and that's the history of the Tevarin. Not really history of Tevarin. It's more like a primer on the Tevarin, who they are, where they came from, how they influenced the universe. It's anywhere between 9 and 10 minutes long. Kind of think of it as kind of like a companion to the last one I did. So exactly, Death Factor. The new Babbage mission in Sitcom is very much like that Shadowrun mission against Microtech. Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, Cyberpunk plays a huge influence on the aesthetics and the style of Star Citizen, in the sense of like cyberpunk genre. I would say that Star Citizen is a cyberpunk game, in the genre of cyberpunk. It is space opera, but it's definitely leaning heavily towards cyberpunk. Mega corporations, intrigues, cybernetics. Like there's a lot of like the themes of cyberpunk, almost dystopian world. I mean, think about the Klesher Rehabilitation Center. The audio from that alone is the dystopian black comedy of a cyberpunk world. Hacking, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. I would say whereas like Wing Commander and Freelancer were much more like influenced by World War II and like old pirate films and stuff like that, and stories and like old adventure tales of space. Star Citizen is much more inspired by Blade Runner and Aliens, if that makes sense. Whereas, old Chris Roberts stuff is like Buck Rogers and Star Wars and Battlestar Galactica. New Chris Roberts is Blade Runner and Aliens. That's the kind of the difference. You got a much darker, edgier tone with his stuff in Star Citizen. They have, but they haven't talked about it recently. Their death factor, just because talking about in-game diseases in the middle of a pandemic is kind of poor taste. It would be kind of not the thing you want to be published. CIG or Star Citizen developers add in-game diseases or talk about in-game diseases. It's like, yeah, not a good look. I love Shadowrun. I love that style of I guess it's fantasy punk or modern fantasy or whatever it's called. That style of storytelling is fantastic. I just don't think it's ever done right. Like Bright was done terribly. And the latest what was it? Disney produced it. Can't even remember the name of it. I just heard it's terrible. G Fuel or it's just Fruit Punch. Hi, buy me this game. No, Little Spike. Bye. Oh, wait, make me buy this game, please. No. That you said, buy me this game. Make me buy this game. No. No. Either one of Will Smith, yeah. I dig sci fantasy. I mean, if anybody is interested, Star Citizen is an open world sandbox that's in development. It's been in development for almost 8 years now, almost 8 years now. It's likely to be in development for a little bit longer, at least several more years until it reaches beta. There are two different types of games. There's the Star Citizen, there's a single player Squadron 42. Players can purchase in-game ships and stuff like that. It still can be occasionally wiped because it's an alpha, but you can also pay thousands of dollars for Squadron 40 or for ships in game. They don't give you any real advantage, really, but that's for some debate for some folks. That's the basis of Star Citizen. If any of those things along the line made you go, or if you're on the fence already, then don't buy it. If you're on the fence about the game and you've done research, or anything I just said makes you go, oh, I don't know, then don't buy it. Trust me, it's not worth it. Not worth it, the blood pressure. No, you're never supposed to get the F8 Lightning. You're supposed to be able to purchase it in game after completing it. That was the idea. So it's the connection between the two. So like by beating Squadron 42, you have the option to purchase it in game, a civilian version of it in game. Zalman, it's really hard for me to say about that because the Hurricane and the Sentok Yai are two entirely different ships. The Hurricane's a two-person ship, but the Sentok Yai is a single-person ship. And the Hurricane's purpose is to be kind of like a flying turret, a flying hammerhead turret. And the Sentok Yai is a medium fighter. So one is more of a sort of heavy ship. It's just completely different gameplay styles. And also, things change. So over time, you have a lot of stuff that will change from that. Is the Buccaneer a good fighter? No. It's garbage. I used to own one, and I just gave up on CIG trying to fix it. It's like you're just going to get blown up all the time by better fighters. All right. So let me go over this Patreon question, and then I'll go on to talk about what we're going to talk about today, which is the Tevarin. Talked about him a little bit, but I want to talk a little bit more in depth. So Tree0311 asks, we've talked a lot about the Tevarin recently, which is part of why I want to do this. What are your thoughts about and speculations on Cabal 3 and the abandoned Tevarin cities and military bases? Besides Elysium and now Cabal, what do we know? Do we know what other systems and planets were in the Tevarin sovereignty? So, we don't. Because the Tevarin didn't even know about the Cabal. The Cabal system was kept a secret from even the Tevarin. Likely it fell sometime It was abandoned sometime after the end of the First Tevarin War, maybe during the First Tevarin War, somewhere around then. And not even the modern Tevarin know about it, because that's 500 years ago. You know, it'd be like saying, oh, do we have secret records of what George Washington, you know, said in a meeting? You know, I mean, it's a little bit more specific, but like, what, unless there was some sort of records kept, which there doesn't seem to have been, we don't know why they were abandoned. We don't know what's going on with it. And we didn't even know that the Tevarin really had jump technology or had perfected jump technology until they met humanity. So we don't know if there's any other systems. Cabal, and for those of you guys who don't know Cabal, the Cabal system is one that was found very recently in the last, I say, 50, 60 years in the Star Citizen universe. And it was found to have fully intact Tevarin cities and military bases with fully intact military gear from as old as the First Tevarin War, and including prowlers, which is where Asperia got its prowlers to study and then mock up on their own to kind of modernize and rebuild. So the Asperia prowler is based off of the old Tevarin prowlers that they were able to get full, like, ships from the military from Cabal 3, because they were able to get it from there. So, but that's another mystery. That's another mystery that's intentionally left open, because CIG wants us, the players, to be involved in that mystery. Because the little dangling thing at the end of that story is that some of the equipment that was in that stuff was made recently, like within the decade before it was found. So Cabal was at least partially inhabited by somebody who was making Tevarin technology only 10 years before the UEE discovered it. Which is there a secret Tevarin sovereignty that survives somewhere out there that's planning for a third Tevarin war to retake Jalan? How is that going to impact things like Shuj Kosi and the Tevarin who are currently living on Jalan? How about the other Tevarin that exist outside of it? Does this mean that the Rajora still exists? There's a lot of mysteries involved with the Tevarin, which is cool. Definitely some stories that are going to be waiting to be told there. I feel like it would probably too, a little spike, but when you realize what VR is required for full VR, it's probably not going to be. Likely it'll be compatible for things like being able to be in ships, but there's a lot of other stuff that's involved in VR, including like using hands and stuff like that, which you don't really have in Star Citizen. And you'll definitely have some issues, because as you're walking around and doing first person, you're going to be at a disadvantage if you can't see your, because you're also going to have the disconnect of like what you're seeing and hearing versus what you're doing, the inner ear issue. As someone who owns a VR headsets, played a lot of VR stuff, it can be nauseating and painful if you're not careful. Hey, Nicholas. I think the Hurricane's like a glass cannon with, as well, one small shield. I mean, like, what do you want to do, Zal, is the question. Like, are you a combat, if you're a combat pilot, which it sounds like you are, do you have somebody else who's going to fight with you? Because if not, then you get a Santokyai, if that's the only other option you're looking at. Because the Santokyai is a single-seater fighter, whereas the Hurricane is a two-person fighter, and most of the firepower is locked up in the turret. Breaking Jump Point Charter found system with Tevarin remnants. I have to look at that one. Excited for 310. A lot of people are. There's a lot of cool changes that are going to be coming in with 310. And it sounds like, at least when I was watching Board earlier today, he was like, yeah, I think it's going to come this week, so we'll see. Hey, BSNT. I want to survive by myself as long as possible, and I want to control control of all weaponry. Then don't. Why you have a hurricane? You don't have to necessarily get the Sentok Yai. There's other ships, the Saber, the Super Hornet. But why do you have a hurricane? It was sold as a two-person fighter. Get another ship. Because we don't even know if the Sentok Yai is going to be... If you're trying to look for meta, don't bother, because the meta changes every so often. But everything else, you know. Did you buy the Constellation Andromeda? Looking forward to seeing how it handles in Atmo. We'll see. Looks like the Corsair will be kind of canon exploration glass. Exploration glass 2. A glass cannon exploration. Yeah. Nicholas, it's... A lot of people are like, it's an exploration ship. I remember getting into this argument. Someone said, oh, it's an exploration ship. And I said, it's a combat ship. And they're like, but it says exploration. And I'm like, yeah, the Cutlass says search and rescue. Yeah, but the Corsair says exploration. I'm like, yeah, and it's got a lot of firepower. Oh, so, but I mean, it's got too much firepower. I'm like, what? Yeah, I think it's going to get nerfed when it comes out, because no exploration ship should be a combat ship. And I just wanted to go, are you not paying attention? Like, basic research, people. Basic. They're Drake ships. They're always for something else. But in reality, they're for piracy. So... You think we'll see an actual war in the PU, for example, like you mentioned, the Third Tevarin War? Oh, yeah, 100%. That's 100% going to be on the table, I think, for Star Citizen and CIG. And based on the tools they're developing, I'm not going to say it's going to be easy, but it'll be a lot simpler than other places are. Because CIG is not developing this in the kind of like a room system sort of situation. You know, they have that underlining quantum concept they have, where like they're tracking each individual actions, and it's all being done under the surface, and then they're trying to figure out how to figure out when players can see it, when players can't. But that system underlining the surface is important, because if that system, once that system is created and implemented, that will become the basis of them being able to manipulate the universe, because all they have to do is drop in a couple of quanta, little actors who are intentionally shaking up the system, and then you get a war. You know, and it's not something that they have to go in and program and script out. I mean, they probably have to do some set piece battles they have to work on, but generally speaking, you know that in this region there's going to be conflict, because the news is talking about a conflict, and you go into that region, you'll see an Idris and another capital ship just whacking away at one another, and then, you know, people saying, get out of this combat zone, it kind of thing. Like, it's not going to be perfect. You're still going to see the seams there where it's like, we're in a combat zone, get out of there, or we're in, you know, get out of here, citizen or civilian, this is none of your business. Like, they'll have some stock audio that'll play that'll be the same thing as like when they're taking on a bad guy, but it'll feel bigger because you'll be able to see the bigger like scopes of the battles in certain areas that will change. And that's the advantage of what CIG is doing, building the base to function as like, you know, this base simulation to kind of input into the main game. That's hard, but once it's done, the idea of it being able to influence, it makes it a lot easier for them to do down the line more and more various like gameplay stuff that will impact the gameplay, and that they don't have to go through and build an entire expansion to get it done. They just have to drop some AI in the right place. Blaster beer. The signature drink will be whatever is I can afford. I know CIG can get nerf happy from the concept, but use some brain cells. About the Corsair, yeah, like it's not going to be. It's like, oh, it's too powerful. It's like it's gonna have like one underpowered shield generator because that's how Drake designs stuff. They designed Drake, and it's probably going to be like tissue paper if it gets hit. But it's got more guns than God because that's what Drake does. It's probably going to be fast in a straight line and hit like the right hand of God when it attacks. But it's an exploration ship. Yeah, yes. And it can fight. It's also going to be easy to kill. Yeah, the exploration ship to explore cargo ships. Yeah. I used to say that it's used to explore the inside of other ships' cargo bays. Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, exactly, Yuri. It's for explanation. Laughs and dredge. Yeah, laughs and Drake. You guys for the retweets and the favorites. Spread the love you guys get a chance to. All right. So if there's no more questions and that kind of stuff, more turret gunners. I mean, that's one of the reasons why the Buck isn't very good, because it's designed as a enemy AI ship right now. But let's talk about the Tevarin a little bit. One of the things that I'm going to talk about more detail in the video is that the Tevarin are an interesting people. We don't have a lot of information about them. Because I think they're still working on a lot of their concepts and stuff like that. And it's obvious with them making the Prowler that they're going to want to put more of their ships in. So we might get things like their spears or other martial weapons that they have. And as much as I joke about Tevarin Kung Fu, I could easily see that being something that replaces your style of whatever combat you do for like fists. Not necessarily gives you more damage or anything like that, but you go there and you can swap out your styles of martials. It just would be changing the animation, stuff like that. So it's more of a flavor than anything else. But at the same time, they're a huge part and a small part of the universe. They're a huge part in the impact that they've played in the lore. But they're a small part in terms of they only really matter around Jalan, Elysium 4, and in the Elysium system. They don't really play a huge part in the rest of the Empire or in the galactic scale. They're kind of a smaller side group. Kentucky Fried Tevarin. Now, Guns and Glue, they have the phalanx shields do exist in game. We have phalanx shields. The phalanx shields, I forgot the name of them, but they're the ones that come on stock on the Banu Defender, and also stock on the Prowler. Those are phalanx shields, Tevarin style phalanx shields. But the way that they're making them is a little bit different. I've seen them work in the past. The way that they work is where if one shield's face gets hit, the rest of them will feed power into that shield face, so that if you're getting hit from the right, you have to basically take down all of the shields at once. So instead of having shield face, shield face, shield face, shield face, you have 4 that are all pulling from the same power source. So you have to pull down all the shields, which takes a lot longer because you have to kill all of the power rather than just one. It's a clever way of doing what they want, essentially doing the same idea as the phalanx, which was for bigger ships to essentially merge their shields as one, so that their shields aren't just their own shields, but the shields are combining with the other ships around them to create an uber shield. It works the same way. It's just individual style. You think you'd have to relearn the combat style if you die and become the new inheritor? That would be fucking awesome. That would be fantastic. But I'm a masochist when it comes to that kind of stuff. But Nicholas Flannel, you say you bought an Andromeda, and I'm a little worried because the Andromeda isn't a good ship. It's one of those ships that's decidedly worse than a lot of other ships, and how it's designed and how it functions. And I'm always afraid when people tell me they buy a Constellation, because it's like, why? What's the purpose? Because there's really nothing a Constellation does that another ship doesn't do better, for many ways, shapes, or forms. Anyways, back to the Tevarin. So they're fascinating because they have such a small impact, but they're such a huge reach in the lore. So they're very much almost like a lore species rather than kind of an in-game species. I mean, they'll eventually have an impact, but I doubt you'll I have serious doubts you'll see Tevarin in like Squadron 42 or in maybe in any of the episodes of Squadron 42. Maybe a little bit, but I don't think you'll see them. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that CIG just doesn't quite know what to do with them properly yet. So they're trying to like figure out what to do. Yeah, Gianna turtles. The Connie's great for target practice. Ouch. But yeah, there's Gianna the turtle-like species, yes. Let's do some when will CIG cycle the upgrade paths for the ships? Also, when will the next ship sale be? I just started 2 weeks ago and I'm curious. Hey, well, welcome to the community sniff. The next ship sale will be whenever CIG cares it is. We don't know. The only for certain ship sale time is at the end of the year, what's called the IAE, or the Intergalactic Aerospace Expo, which is in lore at least is a time period, it's like a ship show. Think of it like a yearly ship expo in lore. And in reality, it's where they sell a lot of the older ships or some of the ships that are not as available anymore. But you also get to try out a lot of those ships from that manufacturer free in game, because you get free rentals of it. And as far as the cycle the upgrade paths, you mean cycle the upgrade paths with cash? I don't know. But other than that, I don't know what you're quite saying with the cycle the upgrade paths. You're gonna have to kind of be more specific about that. Seems like a stream is waiting for a Squadron 42 video. Hey, Parker Young. No. We do this all the time. We do this every Tuesday. We talk about lore. We talk about Star Citizen. We just hang out and talk out. It's a little bit more of a question and answering session, as well as other things like that. If they don't plan on using Tevarin Squadron 42, why focus on getting their stuff out? It could be that they're trying to get the design language down because they're going to use the Prowler in Squadron 42. But let me put it this way. We have more recent updates on the language and the character models of the Xi'an, the Vanduul, and the Banu than we do anything in the Tevarin. The only thing we have of Tevarin was a concept page, which I think was done 2 years ago, that was finally published on the artist's personal art site as part of his portfolio. That's it. We haven't seen anything or heard anything about the Tevarin in terms of practical applications of the Tevarin in game in a long time. So yeah. Hey, Target Drone. I really feel some hate from my Connie over here. No other ship can get into orbit without engines just by using an elevator and vehicles, so there. Well, the name checks out. Does the UE military use the Prowler? Yes, I think they do. They may not directly, but I'm fairly certain the idea was that they use it for Spec Ops missions. I think they said that they use it for Spec Ops missions. The Marines do, essentially. Do you think Tevarin are predatory or scavenging types of birds? 100% predators. They used to live on the top of mountains. They're literally a mountain species, and they're birds. I'm almost for certain that they're raptors, you know, like raptor birds, in that kind of sense, which is why they're so aggressive. Answer some stuff with it. Yeah, the Squadron 42 video is, I don't know why it's taking them so long. I like the idea of targeting computers and components like that. Are you excited for the physical component system? Of course I'm excited for the physical component system. I just like to see the game being more done than it is. It's always good. Is there a Connie support group? There should be. Hey, Jesse Barbell, how you doing? Yeah, it's Andrew. There should be one. Seems like Tevs have the most mystery yet to be revealed. Like Squadron 42 maybe is to save a campaign. Maybe it's for a different campaign. Yeah. I could see it for more of the outlaws types of stories, because they tend to be more outlaws and like pirates. There's a Tevarin pirate lord in the Null system who runs his empire out of the Olympus, the wreck of the Olympus. But other than that, there's really not a lot. Thank you guys for the retweets and the favorites. I figured I'd hop on one of these things, seeing as it's on and I'm around once. Well, welcome, Jesse. Hey, Drycon. Was the Bengal carrier built to take on the Vandal King ships? No. The Bengal carrier is, as far as I can tell, one of the oldest ships into the fleet. The Bengal carrier was around for at least the Second Tevarin War, possibly the First Tevarin War. There was a Bengal carrier that existed. Yeah, I think it was around the Second Tevarin War. So the Bengal carriers were at least built during the Second Tevarin War. Yeah, there was one. The Squadron 42 was on a Bengal carrier. So, yeah, there's at least likely before that too. So, and the Second Tevarin War was in the 26th century, 27th century. It was like 400 years ago. So, they were built before Vanduul contact, before humans had any contact with Vanduul. It's the Retribution class dreadnought, or whatever it's being called. The Retribution was built to essentially fight king ships. Was the component system funding goal of the original campaign? No, it was already part of the original campaign. The idea of using a component system. The component system has evolved over time. Originally it was a static system where you would have each component would do different things, and then you'd have utility slots that you could do things to add upgrades to over time. And then that evolved into the system we have now, where you have individual components that do individual things. And that's evolving into, this has always been a stopgap, or like, since they started this component system, they've talked about physicalized components and physicalized damage, which just basically means that where you shoot the ship, if I have a Gladius and you shoot my ship and the bullet goes through my ship, and doesn't hit anything, then nothing gets damaged. But if it goes through the pipeline that is running the power from the power plant to my shields, then my shields are getting less power from that, or go down entirely. Or if you hit the power plant and disable it, now my ship can't function. That kind of thing. That's what physicalized damage means. Just where you hit matters, and will determine what the damage is. Instead of just having health pools like they have now, where like your ship has a HP bar and it goes down over time, and some places are more critical. The physicalized damage system was more direct for that. So, last as we know, it was still being worked on. So, on the ship like the Vulcan. I break from a lot of my friends at Info Runners and say the Vulcan's going to be a good ship. The argument I think that was being made by them is that it's too small to matter, so you'd have to do one, or you couldn't do all three things. You'd have to do one specific thing to be able to do it. Like you couldn't just rearm, repair, and refuel with it. Or if you could only do like one of that, which would be fine in my opinion, because I don't think the Vulcan is one of those things that you use as a, well, it's got flexibility. You can either be a roadside assistance, a fuel rat, essentially, or you are, elite dangerous style fuel rat, or you are working in a group of Vulcans that, one of you is fuel, one of you is repair, one of you is rearm, or, you have a fleet of them that other people kind of help you out with. I think it's a good ship, and I think it's a good ship for like one or two people. But I don't think it's not going to replace a Starfarer or a Crucible, that kind of thing, just because those are ships designed to do those sort of things. But they're also going to be much bigger and require a lot more things, like the difference between a tow truck and a floating garage. So, yeah, I think that's mostly what the Vulcan's designed to do, is to kind of like, hey, I'm running out of fuel. Can someone fix me? Or I'm damaged. Can someone come back and help me repair? I could see it also being for combat roles in groups, not solo. Any thoughts on the Banu Merchantman? I think people are getting a little ahead of themselves on the Banu Merchantman, because the Banu Merchantman is one of those ships that are going back to concept, and the reason why they're going back to concept is because there's a lot of stuff they got to figure out what to do with it. It's my opinion that likely that now that the privateer exists, CIG is going back and going, okay, we know what the Banu architecture is because we've made the Defender. And now we also have a better idea of what the Banu Merchantman is. It's actually you can actually sell stuff with it, like as like a passive, almost like passive income. We got to figure out how we're going to do this mechanic, because if they build the ship and then make the mechanic afterwards, then they may have to go back and redo the entire ship, because it becomes difficult for NPCs to use the elevator to get up and to go to the right places or whatever. So having them go back to concept, I think, is a big deal, because they need to go back and figure out how can they make the ship look similar, but have a function, but still have the function that they originally designed it to have, as like a floating bazaar. So I don't think it's like, if you're buying the Banu Merchantman as a cargo ship, just get a hull. If you're buying it because you want to be a traveling merchant, that's what you do. I can see it feeling the role of combat, something like the old school D&D Paladin, where you can do some combat, but it's to keep your buddies flying. Less Paladin and more Cleric. Because it's not really a combat ship. It's almost purely support. It gives you a small amount of fuel to get you to the station. Yeah, a small amount of fuel to get you to a station, or gives you some new bullets, no missiles, or patches you up so that you can repair some simple fuel line breaks, that kind of thing, to get you on the way. Essentially, gets you enough fuel to get you to a station, or changes your tire, or jumps your battery, like something like that. You're not going to use a Vulcan for long-term extended fixing. It's designed specifically to rescue people. And I think a lot of people are going, well, that's stupid, because I'll just kill myself and wait for, that sounds really terrible, but I'll just kill myself and then respawn back in another station. It's like, yeah, but when you have 5 systems in, and you're on the other side of the galaxy, essentially, and you need to go to the other side, if you screw up or something, an accident happens or something goes wrong, and you're 2 jumps away from your target, and you're in the middle of pyro, the hell are you going to do? You kill yourself, you may go all the way back to your beginning, you've lost all of that time. Time will be as important as money in this game. Trust me. It's easy to look at it now and go, well, we just have Stanton and none of that matters. I've seen people freak out about the medical gameplay because it's like they're completely simplifying it, it's gamifying it, because you're just respawn beds, there's no real medical, like this is Call of Duty, this is Fortnite, like this is Hello Kitty Island Adventure now. It's super casual, and CIG sold us out, man, and there's freaking aliens controlling our minds, like crazy conspiracy stuff because of what's going on right now. But don't look at the broader picture in terms of like how the game's going to develop. So I think the Vulcan is lumped in with that, is that it's very much a ship designed for gameplay that we haven't seen yet. Also, permadeath is still a thing. It's semi-permadeath. I think so. I made the prediction on Inforunners that we will see a one-man repair, refuel, and rearm ship that will split up into 3 different ships. So, like a ship that is just basically a fuel tank, or a ship that is a repair arm, or a ship that is, a restock. Like, think of like cockpit, flatbed, they just swap out the flatbed for whatever they need it to be. And so CIG would just sell each one of those ships as its own standalone hull that does individual things, as kind of like the starter thing. So if you just want to be a fuel truck guy, you can be a fuel truck guy for a single person. I feel like that's still an opportunity for CIG to do, and I could still see them doing it. I see a lot of people also going, well, that's just not valuable. It's like, but it's valuable for game, because if players want to be a support character, they need to have the ability to get into that support role without spending 17, hours, 40 hours hauling boxes from place to place as a ways to make enough money to be a support. No one wants to play the game that they want to play by playing another game before they can get to the game they want to play. Even in games like WoW, if you want to be a ranger, you could still be, or a hunter, you could still be a hunter from day one. It's just you can't do certain things. And I think that's what's lacking right now with CIG, is a lot of those day one options. I want to be a miner. Cool, you've got hand mining. I want to be a salvager. Cool, you've got hand salvaging. But you can't really do hand repair. I mean, I guess you can. Or like hand rearm and hand refuel. You're going to carry around a giant fuel tank on your back? Like, come on, CIG. So I feel like those kind of things are very open to like semi-starter ships, something in the $80 to $100 range that you could do. Three to evade capture. I don't necessarily think you'd like Voltron combining powers there, Murasaki, but I think if you sold them as 3 individual ships, but they're designed to be like support craft, think of them as the same chassis, F-150 with a different flatbed, different thing on the back, a lorry with various options, but in this case you can't really swap them out. They're just welded to the chassis. Super pumped this game over again. What do you think is about the Ares? I mean, that's a ship with a big gun. to attack big ships, but do you think you'll be able to deal with small ships in combat? I love Crusader ship's design, and I really want to buy it, but I'm afraid I'll get stuck. It is a stuck kind of ship. I don't think you're going to be able to kill smaller ships with it. I think skilled pilots will be able to do it, but they've even said that it's an A-10 Warthog. It's their way of building a space A-10, because they're really, really fond of the A-10, at least the designer is. And so then they decided to make it a little bit more diverse, so it's not just like a ground support ship, it's also a ship that can take on larger craft. So it's a sniper mixed with an A-10. And just like a sniper, using a sniper close range on a fast target that's trying to attack you with like a knife is going. People don't use a sniper rifle in games to attack a dude up close. They usually switch to their sidearm. Battlefield, Call of Duty, whatever shooter game you think of, you always switch to your sidearm or switch to a secondary weapon that's not your sniper rifle, because you can't really do that up close unless you're really, really skilled with it. I think that's the same kind of idea. Think of this as the dedicated sniper ship you don't want to be trying to fight CQC with. So, especially against small ships like the M50 or even the Buccaneer or the Arrow or the Gladius, you'll probably tear it up, kind of thing. You'll have to be very, very smart with it. Like the Caterpillar, kind of like the Caterpillar, but I think CIG wants to move away from modularity because it causes a lot more complicated because it's bespoke. And for those guys who don't know what bespoke it means that it's built for the thing. So like building Caterpillar modules are fine, but you have to put effort into building those modules. You cannot use those Caterpillar modules for other ships. So it's essentially like building multiple ships into one ship, which is time consuming, it's costly, and it can be a headache. And so they've moved away from the idea of modularity and instead replaced it with just variants again. So if they were to do something like what I just said, with having like a support line of ships, that it would be a support line of ships that is the same ship with different functions glued to the back or switched to the back. So instead of being swapped out, you can swap these out. It's stuck to that chassis. So if you want to have let's just say it's, for theory's sake, let's say it's an Argo. The Argo HLP. The HLP line has the HLPF, the HLPR, and the HLPA. And the F is for fuel, the R is for repair, and the A is for rearming. And they all have the same chassis, the same Argo cockpit, but in the back you have different modules which are attached. And you actually have to physically get out of the chassis, get out of the cockpit, go back, and then like physically use the tools that are part of the ship to do what you need to do, or to control, like get into a separate control thing to repair and refuel and all that kind of stuff. .360 no scope with the Ares. Woo! MLG horns. Wow, wow, wow. Sorry, Maddie, I had to do it. Long distance component targeting, maybe on larger ships. I could see the Ares being really nasty as a stealth kill ship against like a Terrapin or a Connie or a Vanguard. I mean, it's designed to take on like hammerheads and Idrises and such, but you're not going to take on an Idris with a solo Ares. You're going to have multiple Ares to take on that Idris. So I could see it being kind of like a waits in the dark, fires at a lead ship as the scout ship and destroys it, or takes out its engines and then pounce, kind of thing. Sounds like a lot of modules. I mean, think about in terms of like the Caterpillar, they were planning on doing like a recreation module, a habitation module, a repair rearm or a scrap module. Like they had a bunch of ideas for modules. They even had the idea of a man cannon, which was I still don't know if that was if it was true or if it was made up by players or just misunderstanding by players. Or you could fire people out of the front of the caterpillar. So they had a bunch of ideas other than just the cargo bays, which makes sense. But each of those modules would have to be designed to fit against one another. So they had to be self-enclosed, and you'd have to use the existing geometry, and you have to make sure that there's no breakage for the whole thing. And the effort to do that would be like making an entirely different variant of the caterpillar. Each one of them would probably be an entirely different variant of the caterpillar. And then you'd have to figure out a way that you could swap those out, which isn't as complicated as it sounds, because you can do a lot of hand wavium if you wanted to. But like that's becomes the effort issue. It's like building an entirely new ship for, if not for one of the modules, if at least for all of them, it would be like building an entirely new ship, or at least a variant of a ship. It would take as much effort as the blue or the red took, because they did almost the same thing, where they just replaced the back end with something different. So that's where why they've gotten rid of modularity. They have, but notice how they haven't sold, after they sold those modules for Retaliator, they've even backpedaled on the Vanguard. The Vanguard no longer has modularity into it at all. Like the Battlefield upgrade kits are not even kits anymore. They're just weapons packages, so you can replace your current weapons with whatever you have, because they're built in. They were supposed to be modular, and then they changed their mind. Everything is them moving away from modularity, even though that was one of the the Kickstarter or one of the extended goals. They are running away from it really hard. Yeah, it's the entire premise of the Endeavor, which also, notice, they have not sold any more modules for ships since the Endeavor, the Battlefield upgrade kits for the Vanguard, and the modules for the Retaliator. Who would want to go to CQC with the Donager? Anxious. I get that reference. But yeah, no, I'm excited for Squadron 42 as well. What is the rumored to be the next concept vehicle? I don't know. There's lots of rumors out there. There's rumors of a RSI gunship, which it's coming from Star Citizen leaks, so take it with a massive heap of salt, like a mountain of salt. Not just a grain, just a huge, doubtful salt pile. Because they haven't showed us anything. There's no leaked files or anything like that. It's just, my sources tell me this. And it's like, cool. My sources tell me that Chris Roberts has taken mountains of cocaine and went to Cuba. Whose sources are right? Because I have as much evidence as you do. And that's and again, I always have to say this. I'm not shitting on Star Citizen leaks. I'm just saying you know something and never showing it means that I can't trust you, because they've said stuff like this in the past and were wrong. And I still remember the whole leak where someone showed a picture of Mustafar from Star Wars and tried to pass it off as Pyro 1 before CitizenCon last year. And they gave it to a bunch of content creators. And that ended well. And they went off and they promoted it. Like the content creators were all about it. So I'm hesitant when it comes to those kind of rumors and stuff like that. We do know for sure that CIG has talked about things like the Talon light fighter for the Tevarin, oh gosh, the refinery ship was another thing they talked about. The idea of like a medium or large refinery ship, which sole job is to refine metals. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a battle cruiser sometime later this year. So the idea of a gunship from RSI makes a little sense. But CIG also said that the way that they wanted to release it was small to large. We had the G12, whatever the hell it's called, G13, the G25, the G8, the G6, whatever it's called. I forgot the name of the damn thing. The Origin rover. That's small. So the next thing I would expect is probably a smaller ship, like a light fighter makes sense. Next after that might be something like a refinery ship, and then a gunship, and then, you know, larger capital ships. I could see that kind of progression as well. But they've said that they already had their lineup for concept ships they wanted to do, and that it was going to be small to big in terms of like the later in the year they were going to do that. That's stuff that they've talked about. Tomfoolery, let me give you a link. This music is from Uth O'Reilly, who is a Star Citizen fan. He does a lot of his own music. He's a amateur musician who does this for fun, and all the music he makes on his website and he puts on his YouTube are free to use for things like this, so I always use him in the background. He's actually written music for me for Galactic Historian, so if you've listened to Galactic Historian and you heard the music in the background and the intros, that is almost 100% Uth O'Reilly. So, made for the show. He's also done the intro for TSMR, for both of my TSMR shows, The Expanse and Star Trek at Vasquez, Expanse Actium and Star Trek Vasquez. He is done a bunch of fan stuff. He's done the trailer music, or he's done the themes for Powerverse. He's done the theme for oh, I gotta get some water. Sorry, I'll get that in a second. But nobody. Let's get some more just active stuff here, yes. He's done a lot of work for the community. He started doing Star Citizen fan songs, and now these are all like original songs that he does. Yeah, seeing a Xi'an cargo ship would be nice, because that would be the second Xi'an ship we have, and it would be something that's not a combat ship, which is nice. My wife. Nature is middle. Pig in Australia steals 18 beers from campers, gets drunk, fights cow. Hey, Superbird, how's it going, buddy? No, I gotta get some water anyways, so. Here's what a Xi'an capital ship would look like based off the look of their fighters. We've seen some of the early concepts for it. If you look at there's at least one shot of a hurricane flying, and you can see from the gunner's perspective, and you can kind of see out the window and see there's this big flowy ship it's following. And since the hurricane was originally built for the Xi'an, for the Vanduul, no, for the Tevarin, Tevarin concept, Tevarin War. Oh, you said Xi'an capital ship. I was thinking Tevarin. Never mind. We actually have seen concepts of Xi'an capital ships, but they've probably changed a little bit. They're vertical. If you've seen these big, looks like flying apartment blocks that are blocky with those are supposed to be the Xi'an capital ships. Those were early concepts and play with the ideas of vertical ships. And over time, it's been more developed, more smoothed out. So I expect like that, but more Xi'an. Varn Light Fighter, Talon S4 guns, only 2. Possibly. Size 4, only 2. That would fit in with it would basically just be a scout, the Cartual. It'd be interesting to see how the Xi'an do a cargo ship, because they do their vertical ships. Like, would a cargo ship be cargo in the center and the cockpit, like the bridge at the top? Would it be the bridge in the front and the cargo kind of trailing behind it? Would it be in the front? Would it be on all sides of it? Like, what would a Xi'an cargo ship look like? Yeah, see, from what I've seen in terms of like the early concepts of Tevarin capital ships, at least if it wasn't just some stock image they threw up there, it looks like a giant, like, squid, almost. Where you have like a front, big rounded front, and then kind of trailing, like parts to it in the back, which I think could look really cool if they added the bird aesthetic as well, with some like wings to it, where it's kind of like a big bulbous front with some wings and some trailing aspects to the back, and the trailing aspects are adding to like living quarters or weapons or something like that. I don't know. Was it CitizenCon? Yeah, they talked about that. I mean, I could bring it up. They actually had a graphic of all of the options that they had. It was like Talon, refining ship. There was a couple of things out there. It's like an angel squid. Yeah, like an angel squid. I wouldn't be surprised if it was like the Titans from Eve, or the mothership in Homeworld. But again, more sleek. No, I didn't. Xi'an Trader. Oops. Star Citizen. When was this from? 1 year ago. This is from 3.3.3 model. Oh, this is an old. Yeah, that's really old. That's huge, though. That's massive. I'll give you guys a link. Boop. There you go. That's what I'm seeing. I'll put it up. I'll put it up on the screen. These are found in internal files. Again, this is from a post that's over a year ago, so it might have changed a little bit. So yeah, basic idea. Like how this person has Minecraft on their on their hotbar. And Star Citizen. Doctor Who thing, gravity on all walls, floor, maybe. Not quite, but I mean, you can also look at the difference between the Aegis civilian ships versus the Aegis military ships. The Reclaimer and the Vulcan don't look anything like any of the military ships that Aegis has released. Maybe the Hammerhead is the closest thing. But like the Saber and the Vulcan don't look a damn thing alike. They're very different in terms of their design language, but they're also designed to do different things. The Kar-2-Al and the Descent Tokyai are combat fighters, so maybe they're a little bit bulkier when you're doing freight shipping. There's also history thing. Thank you, Disco Lando. There's lots of ships which are years apart in lore, so some of the ships may have been designed a little differently. Though I am still concerned and still interested in concepts about like the Vulcan and the I don't know how to put this. The Vulcan is a very different style of ship compared to all the other ships. It was also, in lore, built during the Mezzer era, so it's a very old ship. It just seems like it's not an Aegis ship. Now, I remember Disco saying, and I know Disco's in chat, but I remember Disco saying that this was one of those that you helped kind of bring forth, and you're like, anything but Aegis, and it ended up being Aegis. And I was like, I think it fits more with the Argo these days, honestly. It looks more like an Argo ship than it does an Aegis ship, but changes over time, yeah. Stop using logic, Disco. How dare you? What's the stream about, Lazarus? What we do with office hours, we just kind of sit here and talk. I talk about lore mostly because we do Galactic Historian, but we talk about the game, we talk about development, we talk about how lore ties into the game now, expectations, questions, answers, just kind of more hangout. It's a shorter, one of my shorter streams about these kind of things. So. And each company tries to infringe on the territories of another, so sometimes you get an Aegis version of an Origin ship. Okay, that makes sense. I got the Dodge Challenger change the Mustang and Corvette design. Okay, yeah, makes sense. Concerns about modules maybe change the cat into a Carrack. I still have my Endeavor though, so I'm wondering about. So, Royland, the thing about the Endeavor is that the Endeavor is designed for endgame. I always call it the endgame level stuff. Like the Endeavor is something that you deal with dramatically different than say, than say even the closest ship, which I guess would be the Carrack in terms of sizes. The Endeavor is a farming ship. It's a medical ship. It's a science ship. It's probably the closest thing you're going to get to a colonization ship. There's a huge number of things it can do, and all of them are on huge scales. Heck, the front of the Endeavor is a separate ship. Like, that's how big it is. It's something like the size of a Bengal in terms of its size. It's huge. It's a massive ship, and it does a lot of different things. So I wouldn't expect it coming out until possibly even after the game has launched, just because it's one of those ships that is so specialized in what it does, yet is so large that you need a lot of the gameplay elements to even be fleshed out before it can even come out there. So, questions. How do I make it on the captain's table? Nazarius, talk with me. Send me you can join me on Discord, or you can just send me a message through Twitter or anything else like that. And we can schedule it at some point. That guy Adam. Hey dude, watch your lore videos. You deserve more subs, dude. Thank you, that guy Adam. The Vulcan was an idea I had. It was one of the five they've taken from me, and my only rule is no Aegis. I did not get that. Is a nightmare is what it is. I can imagine. I don't know how long you've been here, Disco, but we were talking earlier about modules and about how, CIG has moved away from modules, and I tried to explain, like, just thinking about the modules for like a caterpillar, each module would have as much work as a variant on a normal ship. If not, all of those modules would be like a completely separate ship. and having to do all the details and making sure things don't crash into each other, all of the kind of the different work, that alone is a super Herculean effort, which is the reason why modules have disappeared, because it's a lot easier to make a ship with hardened variants in terms of like, this ship has this ship has that, because those are simpler to make, easier to model, and then push them out, versus the nightmare that it is to make one ship, which is essentially 6 ships out of one ship. That just doesn't work with how CIG makes the stuff. So I don't know. It seemed to make sense in my head from the way I was talking about that. The Event Horizon Endeavor, yeah. Is it almost over? No, we got. I mean, it's like 30 minutes. Thank you, Cupan. But seriously, Galactic Historian is one of my favorite Star Citizen video series. Amazing work. Can't wait for more. Thank you, man. Yeah, I'm trying to challenge myself and do more often. So I've done a video a week the entirety of June. I started like mid-May and I'm done through June. I might take a break the first week of July, but we're actually going to be doing a Tevarin video this week. So, how do people feel about the Lancer being 4-seater instead of a 2? It makes sense, because when you come down to it, Star Citizen, like the way that CIG is making Star Citizen in terms of ships is that ships can be piloted or manned by maybe 2 or 3 people, but the more people you have to break up the labor, the better that ship is going to function, either like managing shields, managing power, managing, those kinds of ideas will be more fleshed out, and CIG seems to be going down that design level, that design path. So having 4 seats means that you can distribute that effort easier, which makes it easier to fly. Using a nerdy analogy, think about the TARDIS. The TARDIS was not designed for one person to control it. You can do it, but it's difficult. But with more people controlling the ships, the TARDIS, it becomes easier to maneuver. Nerd. Do you think Drake will be willingly do business with Vanduul given the chance? I don't think the Vanduul would do business with Drake. I think Vanduul would just stab a Drake. It would just stab Drake salesman. It's just kind of how they work. I could definitely see Drake selling ships to the Banu, and the Banu selling those to the Vanduul, but the Vanduul also don't seem too keen on entirely replacing their ships, though they are scavengers, so it would be hard to see. I'm just glad I caught some of it. I'm loving Galactic Historian. Thank you, Xavier. I can offer no counter argument. At the moment, yes. That's the thing is that a lot of stuff that's in Star Citizen right now is not the way it's designed to be. A freelancer is fine with one person, but this freelancer now is not going to be the freelancer in 3.10, in 3.11, in 4.0, in 5.0, in however many years down the line. As more stuff comes online with things like physicalized damage, in terms of multi-crew capabilities, as the UI gets improved and changed, all of these things will add to the ships, including the freelancer. So because it has 4 seats now, even though it doesn't really matter, that doesn't mean that it won't matter in a future patch. Because everything that CIG is doing is for a reason down the line. And anytime that even players go, why does this exist? Yeah, CIG will sometimes go, yeah, why does this exist? And that's when you get remakes and remodels and changes to ships design, because it just no longer falls within their concept of how the game is developing, which is time consuming and expensive, but it's one of the drawbacks of open development. People want their ships, so they'll be more willing to push out ships now and have to fix them later. Though they seem to be getting better at it. Vandu like what they have at the most. They would buy components to integrate, probably, or just stab Vandu and take it. When do you think we'll get stuff like decoy missiles? Oh, I don't know. On larger ships, I can see it being far more expensive. Hi, as working in the game industry myself, in my opinion, CIG will extend their planetary tool to a solar system tool to make. They already have a solar system tool. It's called Soul Ed, I think, is what it's called. Soul Editor, Patrick. So it's a, and then they also have planetary tech inside that editor. There might be a separate editor. There has been no official announcement by CIG about this. But sleuthful citizens have already found out that Turbulent, the third-party developer who works with CIG, is opening up a new studio, specifically to build systems, star systems or planets at least, and they're hiring for that. And it doesn't take a genius to figure out that CIG is essentially opening up a new studio dedicated to just building solar systems and planets. And the hard part for CIG isn't building planets and solar systems. They seem to be able to do that pretty quickly. The hard part is the bespoke landing zones, because every landing zone has to be built by hand, or at least has a lot of handcrafted components, especially when you get to the larger landing zones areas. So the systems are mostly procedurally generated. It's just, and then they have to go through and smooth out some issues. And they already have those tools. The issue is now getting people to use those tools to build the stuff, you know. The difference between building tools and actually using them. It also does not mean it'll make sense later. What do you mean, Lennox Shadow? What do you mean it won't make sense later? I mean, the Freelancer is still a larger ship. It's not a small ship. And it's not exactly a nimble fighter. So having someone who can control the shields, someone who can control comms, and someone who can manage power distribution, that's 4 things you could do right there pretty easily in a combat situation. That's the beauty of things like the Freelancer, is that it's designed to have, you can have 4 people working with it, but you can just do it yourself too. So it's not like a mandatory thing, it's just an optional thing. Question, where's the Discord? I didn't know there was one. Where can I find it? Nazareth, I'll get you a link. Discord. Got the link. Just hopefully this works. I've had some people say it doesn't work properly. I'm not a developer, Kevin, so I couldn't tell you if that's going to happen or not. You work in Montreal as well? Did you see the job listings? I thought they had a tool for planets. They do have a tool for planets. They also have the Soul Editor, is what they've called it in the past. They built that first before they built the planet tech. There's actually a couple of different videos that from, I think, Inside Star Citizen that talk about the Soul Editor, about like lighting with the Soul Editor, how it works in the game, the Solar System Editor, you know, and how detailed they can get, how they can pull back, pull in, all that kind of stuff. So it exists. So I don't know if the planetary tech is part of the Solar System Editor, if it's a separate tool, you know, but yeah, they've developed in both of them. Is there another war going on other than the Vanduul one? In terms of humans, there's the ongoing conflict for Nexus. That's more of like a long-term insurgency than it is a war. similar to modern wars in Iraq or Afghanistan. But there's no other human war that I know of. There's a kind of a Cold War between the Xi'an and humanity, but there's no active shooting war other than the Vanduul. Please make Squadron 42 part of the live game as story arc missions. I'm not a developer there, Kevin. I can't confirm that or not. I can't say if that's or not. There's going to be story arc missions all the time, but they're not going to make Squadron 42 part of the PU because it's a separate game. It actually takes place earlier in the story, in the lore, than the game is placed itself. Think of it as kind of like a prequel. And a small gun rack, since you never know what you might find on a wrecker planet. I can see 2 ships in the cockpit being removed and 2 bunks. The extra space can support EVA equipment and Explorer would needed. That would require a complete rework of the ship, though. And CIG doesn't seem to be very interested in that kind of thing. Did you hear that CIG hired a separate crew company to specifically only grind out Star Citizens? Yeah, we were talking about that earlier, Moody's. We were just talking about that. And it's Turbulent, and Turbulent is hiring people for it. There's no official announcement that it has to do with CIG, but people found that Turbulent was hiring people and was opening up a new studio, I guess in Montreal, for that. So it's like 2 + 2 = 4. It's not that hard to figure it out. That's why one of those things that I've always been is see what CIG is doing and see what's happening around CIG, who's hiring, all that kind of stuff. You'll figure out what they're working on. You just need to pay attention to how they talk. Just giving somebody else control of the forward gun turrets would help a lot. Exactly, Kernison. Just having someone else control the guns while another person's piloting is a good idea. No problem there, man. No, not 2 people controlling each side gun, Lennox Shadow. But it could be. More like having someone control the main guns who's not the pilot. He does thanks for that 42 months, my man. Hey, look, it's the number 42. I gotta change that. Really gotta change that that alert before I go live again. You'd love an updated star map? I would too, but I also don't want them to do a bunch of work on it before that matters. It's cool and it's interesting. It's a good base map, so. Lead video game designer under what will you do? Exactly. The guns are forward. Well, that's what I mean. There's 2 seats, Lennox. You've got the pilot and you've got the co-pilot seat. So the co-pilot could easily have the same controls. He or she essentially has the same view as the pilot, just on the other side. Just, flops to the other side. So they're still pointing forward. You can still aim it like you'd aim your guns. Crazy theory, but will CIG add add early content creators to the game, such as MPs later? I've already said many times, Ferric, I would rather CIG not add me in the game, because I feel like it would remove my ability to. Because here's what would happen: someone creates CIG makes the Astropub, puts someone who looks like me as the bartender, even just as a kind of as a nod to content creator, except to me. I'm streaming, someone goes, oh, why are you copying off of, you look like that guy on the, there, are you just copying his style? Why are you copying, this is just a ripoff of the Astropub in game. Why are you stealing that? And it's like, no, I'm the one that they based it off of. And then there's a whole different explanation for that. I'd rather my kind of idea be unique and me being able to pull it off. And I think a lot of, content creators would probably say the same. You wouldn't want a mission giver or like a newscaster that looks like Board Gamer in game, because Board Gamer wants to be a newscaster. There are other ways you can do. You could add those sorts of things, but I don't think it would be a good idea. I think it's a little off for that. Yeah. Speculation on blades coming to Microtech store. I mean, that's where it would be sold. Microtech makes computer parts. They've always done that. The mobile glass is just one of the things that they're most famous for, but they make computer parts, and like flight computers is one of the big things they used to make. So yeah, I could see it. I don't know if it would come sooner, but they've been talking an awful lot about computer slots. Plus we've got the Star Runner coming out. Seems to be what they're planning on, but with everything CIG, remember, what they're planning on does not mean it's going to happen. So go along with where the pilot is flying. Exactly. But it doesn't necessarily have to be, because you can decouple your flight and your guns right now. You can set your guns so that you can aim you can aim separately from where you're flying. You can even do it as a pilot. So the idea of having a co-pilot control the guns of the freelancer, you wouldn't be able to have a full 300, the full arc, and you'd still have to kind of deal with like where the pilot's going. But having those guns makes it a lot easier for the pilot to focus on flying, whereas the gunner can focus on gunning. Since, most freelancers aren't going to be going into battle. More like, oh God, we're all going to die. Someone get the guns while I try to get us out of here and focus on quantuming out of here. I certainly hope that putting the manpower into dedicated star systems team will help them do the whole 100 systems at launch goal. I don't think... Well, here's the thing. Here's my theory on CIG's idea. I think CIG wants to get this to beta. And I think they've said this in the past, that they want to get like 5 to 10 systems done for beta. And I think once they're done with beta, they're going to have, or once they're in beta, they're going to have a soft launch, as it were. So that they'll have 10 systems out, and they'll be rolling out systems every couple patches, or one system a patch or 2 systems a patch, or whatever it is. And then once they reach that 100 system mark, they'll just say, hey, we're launched. But in reality, they launched back at beta. It's just not totally content complete yet. Not everything is in the game yet. So think of it as like the 100 systems as the end goal of the game to make it a released game. That way they don't piss off everyone. They don't have headlines of CIG promises 100 systems, only delivers 10, because then that's just lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit, or other issues like that. If they keep it in a beta state while still producing stuff and getting to that point, the game is effectively done. They're not changing anything. They're just adding new systems. And it keeps people happy while also maintaining that level of, hey, yeah, they're still working on it, as long as they're getting paid for it. Makes a lot more sense to me. And it's also similar to what other companies like Digital Extremes with Warframe, they do the same thing. Technically, if you look at Warframe is still in early access. It's never left beta. And the developers of Digital Extremes have said many times that when they take it out of early access, they're just going to stop working on it. Like, Warframe is forever going to be a beta in their mind, because they're always adding more content. It's just how they develop it. Compromising my identity. Muddying the not just compromising my identity, but muddying the what's it called? The Vogue. Muddying my brand, If it's procedural, it's for sure possible. Yeah, but I mean, you still have handcrafted elements to each system, which requires a little bit more time. For the main cannon guns discussion, being able to multi-lock targets and have the auto gimbal track the targets, this could help with larger ships and AI gunner blades. Probably, but you're definitely going to have to add in a little bit of the delay, like especially for AI gunners and for blades, having a slight delay for tracking, so you're not perfect one-to-one. You're also not going to be moving at high speeds with heavier ships. Capital ships aren't moving at tremendous speeds. So you're mostly, even hammerheads don't really move that fast. So it's a lot easier to track targets with a turret if you're not moving too fast. But you're also not moving too fast, so if someone can get into your blind spot easier, you're done.
They seem to be spread out right now with their responsibilities with Squadron 42. They also have been hiring a lot. CIG has like 90 or 100, different employee slots all over the place for development. They're definitely hiring. They definitely need more people. It's hard to get a lot of the skills that they need, AI specialists, and then you got to think about if they hired someone today. So if they hired, a designer today, right? Right now it's June 23rd, 2020. My guess, 6 months from now, they would be up to speed and ready to go. At best, 3 months. So let's say worst case scenario, 6 months. That means they've hired them on June 23rd. That means just by the time they go on winter break, that designer is up to speed and is at the same pace as every other designer on the team. That means that they're not actually being super effective at their job until 2021. So you don't see the effects of new hires being effective in their jobs, not just with, software development. This happens with every company, but with software development, that requires very tight team dynamics. That requires practice with and in many cases understanding brand new software that you haven't used, being tracking software, development software, whatever. Knowing the tools takes time as well. So all of these things come together, and it just takes time. You have a lagging indicator when you hire people. So even if they're able to meet all of their demands right now, it would take time for them to even come up to speed. So, that's just one of the issues with Star Citizen right now. It's just they're making two games at once, a massive MMO and a big ambitious single player kind of experience. They need more people. They just don't have them. Looking forward to the introduction of the new and specific system based on commodities for trading once more systems come online. I am too. The dynamic mission system, the dynamic economy is something it's one of the pillars this game is built on. Imitation is the greatest form of flattery. Yes, it is. But it's also my brand. But give credit where credit's due, yeah. Obviously, a player-owned Astropub. I mean, yes, I want to open a player-owned Astropub at some point. Microtech is like Apple. Apple makes iWatches, but they make computers. They make computers. They make laptops. They make desktops. They make phones. All those sorts of things. So, the commercial for the freelancers showed it was locking and firing on separate targets. Yeah, that was from the original commercial. If you also remember, it has engines that went vertical. Both of those things were thrown away years ago because of various different things. It's not what it was originally. Star Hunter is looking awesome. Freelancer is a battle boat. There's plenty of people who will argue that Freelancer is a battle boat all in its own, but most people didn't buy a Freelancer to be a battle boat. Even the Miss is kind of like a sneaky battle boat. Welcome back, Jesse. The tube is upon me? Did we get raided? I didn't see it. Oh, Warhouse. Thank you so much for that gifted sub, man. Let's get some more active stuff. Let's get some more beers up here. Seriously, the Miss would be a scary smuggling ship. It is. It's one of the better smuggling ships out there. The only problem is its speed. It's just not fast enough to outrun most of the other ships. It's just really dangerous to try to fight. Cops, how do you get you the only have missions in their face? What are you talking about there, Linux? 100 empty systems soon, TM. John, you're not wrong. Like, you need to have... The thing is that most of the systems in Star Citizen are not filled with things, and that's the point. They need them to be a little bit more empty because you want to have players exploring them. Not fully empty, but Stanton is different. The system that we're currently in Star Citizen is called Stanton. It is probably one of the most populated systems in the UEE. It's definitely one of the most developed systems in the UEE. There's 4 planets which are terraformed or have some terraforming on them, with 4 major landing zones on them. That is rare. Outside of Terra and Sol, Stanton is one of the biggest systems for that. Nyx has 1 landing zone, Levski. Delamar. Pyro has one landing zone, Ruin Station. It's a space station that orbits around the last planet in the system, in Pyro. Odin, I have to look more detailed, but I don't even think there is a landing zone in Odin. Magnus has one landing zone. I forget the name of it, but it's Borea is the planet that you can land on, and that's it. And it's a major industrial center, or was a major industrial center. It's Space Detroit. Nexus, 0 landing zones. Spider, or Cathcart, 1 landing zone. Spider, a big space station. Green has 1 landing zone. It's like a big commercial area. Like there's most places only have 1 landing zone and maybe have a couple of terraformed planets at best, usually like 1. So a lot of the systems are just have various different types of dead worlds on them. Some of them are interesting and more unique, but you're not looking at every system being like Stanton, which is what a lot of people make the mistake of. A lot of people think that like Stanton is the state is going to be what like the rest of the systems are, and in lore that's just not the case. And it would be incredibly expensive for them to try to make every system like Stanton. Warframe's an excellent game. It is. Do alien races have corporations? Yes, they do. POA is one of the Xi'an corporations. There's one of the fuel companies that's in the verse is a Xi'an company. I don't know if there are specific Banu companies. There are Banu Sulis, which is like a company and a family and a trade guild all rolled into one. But the concept of a Suli goes from massive corporation-like entities to families. You know, a procreation Suli is 2 Banu who want to have kids. They form a procreation Suli. It's just a Suli. It's the same concept as a big thing. So they basically take the idea that marriage is a corporate, same thing as a corporate partnership, to its absolute degrees. So yeah, there are alien corporations. As for like long-lasting ones, most of them would be found with the Xi'an. The Banu have them, but they vary because when the leader of a Suli dies, often the Suli will just collapse, and then the people just go off to other Suli or form their own Sulis. So it's like a bunch of family corporations that just constantly turn over. Genocide. We're just talking about lore and stuff like that. Good stuff. In my industry, if you're looking around 2 to 4 years before a new employee is ready to go. Yeah, I mean, it depends on the industry there, Murasaki, but yeah. Microtech is Microsoft. It's Silicon Valley in space is what it is. And as someone who grew up around Silicon Valley, it feels like Silicon Valley in space. I wouldn't be surprised if you find people microdosing for, microdosing on Slam to try to get there, to try to become more efficient. Kraken brothel may be possible. Legal issues, but maybe. The privateer. Let's see. Taking on the freelancer, and though, did they talking on the freelancer? Did they say the same thing about? I'm going through a lot of stuff because a lot of people. We've got a lot of people who showed up and are talking now, are hanging out. So I'm going back through all these other ones. Talking on the freelancer, though, did they do the same thing for the original Cutlass? The engines rotated separately from each other, needless to say. If you guys are wondering about why the freelancer doesn't move anymore, Nubifier made a fantastic history video on the Cutlass, which talked about the issues with the gimbaled engines in the back and how it just didn't work with the flight model, which is one of the reasons why the freelancer no longer has those options for that fully gimbaled engines that they were having, because it just doesn't work right. And he also did one on the history of the design history. This is essentially the design history of the freelancer and the design history of the Cutlass. So if you like lore, Galactic Historian. If you like the history of the game, like the development of the game, Nubifier is putting together these videos, which requires a lot of effort, a lot of research, and I like history. So go check them out. They're pretty cool. Do you think the lore team is ready fleshing out minor NPC factions, characters, and conflicts on different planets, so they are literally working on potential story arcs for players in the future? Good morning. Yeah, good morning too. I 100% believe that. There was a monthly update, usually last month or the month before that, that talked about the lore team had been split up to do more detailed looks at a bunch of different systems, about how the lore of each of those systems. Because most of the system's lore is generic right now. We generally know who found it or when it was found. We know what its purpose was. We have some very generic overview of what the system is. But when it comes to the factions that still exist on there, who runs what, where are these things, they're not always so fleshed out. So right now they're definitely looking at things like what factions can they create, what gangs exist there, what syndicates exist there. Is the VUEE present? Are there other corporations there? Is it run by a hippie commune of space anarchists? Like, who knows? Like those kind of details about landing zones or regions are definitely being worked out for story arcs, especially for like mission givers and such. Anybody ever notice that people complain about the constellation struts are highly likely to recommend the freelancer? I never complain about the constellations, the struts in the constellations. I don't have an issue with struts. I think a lot of people blow them out of proportion, but that's just me. It's my unpopular opinion there. No, all races will have their own social norms unfamiliar to human, like creatures kill for hunt to eat. Some will kill you because the plagues, because you're a plague. Some will kill you because you're a race. Every species is going to have different approaches to different things. But yeah, I was thinking that the cops or bounty hunters coming to stop you, you only have a miss. You're and launch all its missiles. You could, but then the problem about that is if you're in a miss and a cop comes to stop you and you fire all your missiles, you kill that cop, you're still going to get a crime stat. And more cops will show up. Now, as a smuggler, you've done the one thing you don't want to do, which is become visible. And because you're visible as a smuggler, you're going to have bounty hunters and the police come after you harder in-game. That even happens today in-game. And that means that you're going to have to fight them more. And now, then by killing them, you're going to increase your crime stat even further, which is going to increase the incentivization by bounty hunters and by security officers to kill you. It gets higher and higher and higher until it's so hot that you're either going to die or you're going to have to reduce your crime stat. And while while trying to reduce your crime stat, you're going to be hunted as well. And if you aren't able to reduce your crime stat, you're going to go to jail, which is even more time, which is the reason why fighting is the last thing any smuggler should want to do, because it just spirals out of control so quickly if you start getting involved in conflict. I did an entire video on that. Beginner's Guide to Smuggling. Why is Pyro not mined out shithole anymore? Because they changed it in lore, just because they want players to mine it. Pyro is high risk, high reward system. CIG is making it as one of those places where you want to make a lot of money, kid, go to Pyro. You don't have to make a lot of money, but if you want to make a lot of money, go to Pyro. And guess what? It's the Wild West. Anyone can shoot you. That they want to make it, Chernarus in space. It's Rust Island. It's Lord of the Flies, but everyone's got laser guns, Are these things you're naming? Are these things you're naming now all systems? Yes, SkyZ. What I was saying earlier, Nyx, Pyro, Magnus, Nexus. Those were all systems in game. There's over 100 systems in game. Guns and Glue. I'm hoping it's because the beginning was works. Okay. Question: do you think CIG will make and ship engines component that can... Yes, they've already talked about that. Yes, they are. Warp Space Game. Hey, how's it going, buddy? Nope, it's a mechanic. What's a mechanic? John. I maybe missed that one. Plus, Sully is fun to say. Yes, Disco Lando. It is fun to say. I was watching the WWDC Apple's conference, and the Microtech factory line look like they're cut from the same cloth. I don't doubt that the artists took a lot of references from Apple stores and stuff like that. 890 jump brothel. Ooh. Nah, too luxury for the type of job. Needs a little bit of rust and dirt. Got bedrooms though. Yeah. Oh, it's Cisco. Hey, dude. Yes, hey, DFX. The only problem is with the Kraken brothels. Oh, where'd this go? I'm telling people, CIG is always lurking. CIG is always watching. Sometimes it's on their own time, too. Probably is on their own time. Most of the time. Maybe future upgrades for the Privateer. Yeah, thrusters on moving engines broke a lot of things. Please no wipe until the game stops breaking on each patch. Just flag the exploits and modify accounts accordingly. I don't think they're planning on wiping a lot. I think that if they can get away with it, they'll not wipe until the dynamic economy comes in, or until they have a huge change to the economy, where they're like, okay, we've collected enough data. Let's go wipe back to zero and see where this is. But to give some perspective, I don't think they've wiped since November. Am I right about that, or is it since January? Because if it's from November, that's insane. It's from January. We're still looking at 6-7 months of no wipe in game, which is huge. Most games don't last that long in terms of gameplay, so I'm okay with it. Like, I'd be okay with a wipe tomorrow because that's a lot of gameplay time. Sometimes wipes clear up some bigger issues accountably, so 50-50 opinion on my side, yeah. We need a booty slider. No, we just need to give the male model in Star Citizen some butt. I'm tired of having the male model have a Hank Hill ass. All right, he's got a flat like 2x4 butt. He doesn't have a butt. He has a plank of wood for a butt. Once blows struts out of proportion. CIG making RSI ships. A lot of the new RSI ships don't really have a huge, like, lots of struts in the way. I mean, the Mantis is great for that. Strutelian Andromeda. Scanners are going to be implemented in an upgradable component or just a bolt-on thing like the 315p has. I don't know DFX, but I'm gathering that the scanners will probably be part of the computer systems. My guess is that each component or each computer system will have avionics, scanners, and then other slots open for things like transporting data or something else. I wouldn't be surprised if they had separate scanners as well. So, like, some scanners would be for mining, some would be for combat, some would be for exploration. But I don't think they've really gotten to that point yet. I think they're still figuring out the slots and those kind of things to figure those out. They seem to want to do that, though. Do you know if scanner? Oh, yeah, a smuggler would need lots of bandits to run blocker for them. Exactly. Smokey and the Bandit. Good vid. Thank you, man. Bring a coda. Bring a coda. Yeah. I drive a pickup truck for work, and the Freelancer feels like I'm driving a pickup truck. The Constellation, with all its struts, feels like a spaceship. Struts are good. Unpopular opinion. I agree. I don't think they're good, but I don't hate them. I also don't hate the Freelancer's tiny little window. Pyro will be a wretched hive of scum and villainy. Exactly. CIG knows. CIG sees all. 100 brothel. 100 eye brothel. Wally's... God damn it, guys. Been a while. I need a reset, though. Yeah, I think a lot of people do. Damn, he thick. So I'm you're a Star Runner guy like me, but what's your favorite ship? Favorite ship is the Freelancer Miss, or Freelancer series. My favorite manufacturer is Drake, and I enjoy the Star Runner. I like the Star Runner. It's not my favorite ship, but I feel like it's a ship that I will use a lot, probably mostly. It's funny, my Lancer is my main, and I have never thought about view as an issue. I've never thought of my Lancers as views as issues. I think a lot of people make a lot of to-do. They have much ado about nothing when it comes to that. My big check clear came up from Microsoft. I'm migrating my Twitch account over to Mixer. God damn it. Don't want to laugh at that, guys. I guess it's a funny haha joke, but remember, people lost their jobs at Microsoft because of that. And they had a day's notice when it came to that. It was really bad. And like some people who had made their entire careers on Mixer completely just rug tossed out from them. It's one of the reasons why I do a YouTube series. I do YouTube and Twitch and have an active Twitter, is because I know if I just put all my eggs in the Twitch basket or in the YouTube basket, if something happens to my YouTube or Twitter, or something completely changes, or something completely changes and YouTube just dies, I still have my Twitch. Something completely changes and Twitch completely is just completely ruined for whatever reason, I still have YouTube. So diversify people. That's one of the things that's important about being a content creator, is don't be loyal to one platform, because that's just setting yourself up for danger. Your fellow Star Hunter guy, but what's my favorite ship? That guy Adam, like I said, my favorite ship is a Freelancer. Probably a Freelancer Miss or a Freelancer Max, but the Freelancer series. The more complacent we are to a wipe, the more likely I think under protest the wipes will be very rare, and hurts to hear okay opinions. I feel like wipes are okay to have, and I think the longer they happen, the more okay they become. Because the longer the game isn't wiped, the more people have chance to play it. And even if a person shows up that week and they have to wipe that week, it's not going to hurt them that much. And if someone who's been making money for 8 months and something they say, oh, we're going to wipe it. I mean, look at ETF, like Tarkov. They do wipes, or they did wipes pretty frequently. It was like every so often they just do wipes. Sometimes people complain, but most people understand it's the nature of the game. It's important for the health of the community, and it's also important for development. You got 8 months of gameplay out of it. 8 months of mostly uninterrupted gameplay. Yeah, it's buggy, but really? Like, cool. Just, you're not losing the ships you purchased with your actual cash. Just get back to going back to the beginning. It's not that bad. Because if you're paying millions of dollars to play the game, you already have all those ships. You're not getting wiped. Connie, that's the biggest thing. I think the biggest mistake the CIG is doing is not redoing the Connie. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that the Connie was built for a very different game. It currently has the 300i problem. For those of you who don't know, and Nubify might be able to help me out with this one, the 300i was originally built to fill a role that was very specific. That role was not quite a Hornet, but not really not as bad as like an Avenger, or like a somewhere between a starter ship and a Hornet in terms of combat, and that sort of range. And as the game developed, you had the Gladius, you have the Arrow, you have the Saber, you had a bunch of other ships started to come out, the different Avenger lines that basically made the 300i superfluous. It really didn't do all that much different. And it was, especially when it comes to the Avenger, it wasn't as powerful as the slightly more expensive Gladius, but it was almost on par with a cheaper ship with the Avenger. So people stopped buying them and flying them. People just melted them and abandoned them. The only one that really mattered was the 350 that people use for racing. So then CIG redid all the 300 series, and they changed the everything up with it. They changed the amount of cargo bay the 315 could carry. They changed the weapon sizes, and now the 300 series is fairly versatile as a kind of luxury, but still somewhere kind of mid-range between the middle and the, like, where it was originally supposed to be, somewhere between starter ship and dedicated combat ship. It has some advantages that it has more fuel than most of the combat ships, but it doesn't quite have as good of the gear as the other combat ships. But it had that problem where sometime, I can't remember when, a couple of years ago, 300s were basically a joke. Nobody cared about them, and then CIG redid them. I think Connie is in the same kind of boat.
it is the joke now. It needs to get redone because the interior is really old. It needs to get rethought about in terms of like the living space. You need to have, I feel like the turret, and they need to switch the guns. So the current guns on the Connie are size 4s on the nacelles, but CIG seems to be wants to make the Connie more of a gunship. And if you're going to make a gunship, those turrets need to be the ones that have the high guns. So giving like size 2s to the pilot and giving size 3s or size 4s to the turret gunners would make it a lot more effective at its job. So, you know, and there's a lot of other advantages you could do, things you could do with a remake of the Connie. But at the same time, that's a lot of effort because a Connie is not a 300. It's huge. It's going to take a lot of time to get them to redo that. But it's definitely one of those things that needs to be done further down the line. Not saying it needs to be done tomorrow, but it's definitely something I would think that because it's so old now. Hey, V Killer, how you doing, buddy? Be loyal to good content, not the platform you put that content on. People will fall. They will, Noobfire, they will. But I think it's better to build a brand on multiple platforms than it is just one. 1K, I don't know, a Mixer streamer, really nice guy. He had his whole stream set up on Mixer. He had 5K followers, all gone. Adam, don't you stream on Mixer? I think I pulled you up on the on Twitch. Were you that guy, that nice guy? Well, I basically reset each time I log off. Oh, wow. Better than 100. Single nose size 4 ones. Glorious, yeah. And that's the thing. It's like, and that's good. I will tell you right now, every combat pilot I've ever talked to, when they find out, when you talk to them, you ask them about the turret gameplay, their first thing they'll say is, good. Because turrets need to be scary. They need to be, there needs to be a reason for someone to hop into a hammerhead. Because if a hammerhead is scary, then people will fly hammerheads instead of flying 6 ships, 6, Gladiuses. And that's a lot more interesting. That's more fun. That means that those big ships have a purpose. It also means that those pilots who own those hammerheads will need players to back them up. All of these things are good things because it encourages multi-crew gameplay, which is good. It expands the role of ships, which currently are fairly underused, which is good. And it also scares the hell out of fighters, which is also good. As far as freelancers go, the freelancer CIG loaned us to get back into things all the time when I'm flying it. I don't like rolling in the third-person view, but I have to do it with that ship. I wish we could put boxes in the cargo lift in the 300s. I'd snag one in the game. Yeah, I think that's the biggest issue right now is that it's the whole boxes in the cargo lifts is the big issue. 315 is 12 SU is great, small and fast. 315 is probably the best. It's better than the Avenger. 315 is hands down the best mid-range ship out there. Better than the Avenger Titan. Fight me, noob. We did this discovery that it has more fuel than the Avenger Titan. It has more cargo space than the Avenger Titan. It has better weapon slots. And I think it has a weapon. It actually has a weapon like rack, which the Avenger doesn't have. And you can get in and out of the ship. And it has an internal cargo space that doesn't get used up when you put boxes into it. It's the best mid-range ship. In-game, right now, it's 800,000 UEC. AUEC. It is not that much different from the Avenger Titan in-game either. So, it is a very good ship. It's a sleeper ship. I stepped on a Connie in Lorville ship store. It tanked my frames. Oof. Watch your filthy mouth ball. What do you bet the third system game will be? Nyx. Nyx has got the Pyro's got a jump point to Nyx, and we already have the Nyx system basically. It's Levski. Levski and Delamar are the only landing zone in the Nyx system, so I wouldn't be surprised. I think ships like Connie or any Misk have extra co-pilot seats. I feel like those seats will be filled to make the ship 10% more agile, maybe. I don't think they're necessarily more agile, but they'll definitely make them more combat capable. Having someone being able to harden shields or to redirect power or to open up communications or to man sensors so the pilot can just focus on flying will really change up the gameplay. This is from me speaking as someone who is fond of games like Pulsar: The Lost Colony and Star Trek Bridge Crew, which require a lot of cooperation. But once you figure out how to cooperate well with the ships that you're controlling, whoo, night and day. It makes it fun, and also you can be really efficient with a good crew. I don't think so. I'm that Captain Adam on Twitch, but I'm super new to your channel, so I don't think we've met before. Okay, well, hi, dude. A lot of people seem to know you, so they've been saying, "Oh, hi, Adam." So it's like, "Oh, hi, dude." Plus, I don't stream. Oh, you don't stream? Okay. Turrets need to be good because there needs to be some weight to consideration of whether you're better off with a turret gunner or an escort ship. Exactly. Like, turrets need to be dangerous, not puny. Good example, the Cutlass. The Cutlass turret is perfect for that size of a ship because it's a size 3 turret. So you can fit 6 size 3s for the pilot ship, but then also having a size 3s on the turret makes it so much better. It's just perfect for combat. Do you have knowledge on Lost Squad? What do you want to know about Lost Squad, John? It looks nice. Yeah. Slightly more expensive. Fuel scooping too. Yeah, it's only a little bit more expensive than the Titan is. And I'm thinking about it, especially in in-game terms. It's not that more expensive in game either. So if you're going from a starter ship, and you want to have something that's a good mid-range ship, that would be a good ship to start off with. Because then a lot of people are like, I'm going to go straight from my Aurora to my to a freelancer. It's like, that's good, but you can make more money faster doing 315p first and then saving money for the freelancer. So it makes it a little bit more expensive, but then you also have the option to always go back to the 315p if you need to. Should I make my 300i a 315p? It depends on what you want to do, Warped. I think the 315p is the best all-around ship of the 300 series. The 325A is a nasty fighter, and the 350R is a great racer. So really, 300 is not a bad choice, but it depends on what you want to do. Jesse Bardell, do you think that they'll do something to differentiate the Mustang Gamma and Omega? Not biased, they're now the same. They're basically the same except for fuel scooping. I believe the Omega is better at fuel scooping. That's the difference. Hey, Rockies, I'm going to make so much money as a top-notch engineer. Yeah, I mean, that's... That guy, Adam's so famous. He's in my chat, guys. Even if you are. We're all just dudes and dudettes who streams on the internets. Just do things for entertainment purposes. As it is, I can fight multiple turret-equipped cutlasses and a tiny little arrow with railguns bolted on, all because the AI doesn't really use the turret to its full effect. That might change. The Omega was supposed to be a racing ship, but my arrow is faster. I mean, the Omega is... The arrow is more expensive than the Omega, though. That's the other thing. What do I think of the F-7C Tracker Hornet? I think it's I think one of the biggest blind spots that CIG has right now is the sensor and
the hell am I talking about? Scanning gameplay. Because I feel like one of the things that the tracker would be good at is a kind of a CNC ship, but also as kind of like a relay ship. So for larger orgs. So you have like a fleet. At its center is, say, a javelin, 2 Idrises, and then a couple of wings of fighters. Each fighter wing may have something like a tracker. That tracker has a huge area that it can track. It can also link communications with all of the different ships and link its scanning abilities, its sight to the rest of the wing. That is also being fed back to the Idrises and to the javelin to create a battle map for that globe that they have to be able to see what's going on in the battle around them, so they know what's going on tactfully outside of just their own little bubble. So I feel like trackers are going to function like that. If not exactly like that, then they need to function as something, because just being able to see more things in one ship doesn't really make it very useful other than solo play. And then even then, you can't really do much because you're sacrificing firepower or stealth or other things for that tracking ability. So there needs to be some clarification and some sort of kind of idea of how some things like the tracker will work. I don't think it's worthwhile right now, but I could see it being useful for that purpose down the road. Again, more playing in a group mode rather than a single player mode. Did Lost Squad get ambushed, mutiny, or am I totally misunderstood? So Lost Squad was lost because it was fighting against the Vanduul during the invasion of... Oh, gosh, I can't remember the name of it. I don't know, chat. I don't know. Fall of Caliban. Fall of Undercan. It's the 88th Squad, the UEE Navy. The squadron received devastating losses protecting civilians trying to escape and flee the system from attacking Vanduul fleet. Only one pilot of the unit survived the event. So the last squad is actually a fictional story inside the Star Citizen universe, retelling the story of the 88th Squadron, who fought to almost literally to the last man to defend civilians evacuating the Caliban system during a Vanduul invasion. So that's what Lost Squad is. Thank you, Noobify. Thanks for coming in, man. Have a good night. Play the dude disguised as the dude doing the other dude. Being the other dude. Also, note that 315 does not permit to change the nose gun mount at the moment. It's non-functional tractor beam. So overall, 315 is less good than a fighter than 300i. Alban, that's a good point. I didn't know that. The Lancer Dur is has a fuel processor. They let us transfer that fuel, then the Dur could be a great introductory fuel ship. It could be, but I don't know how you'd be able to transfer that fuel. Hey, After Effects. I'd love to see scanning get componentized scanners and more skill-based scan gameplay. I mean, my hope is for more detailed scanning. So, for instance, scanning for science scanners, as it were, just generic science scanners, could pick up things like components of an atmosphere, or would tell you what are the composites that make up a certain thing, alloys and such, and be able to tell from a long way off. Whereas, mining scanners will be able to tell you the something similar, but more like mineable material nearby and what it's made of from a distance. And then combat scanners will be able to tell you like what's the ship type, what kind of weapons does it have on it, what is its what are its components, that kind of thing. And then lastly with like cargo scanners and stuff like that, a little more specific or more generic scanners. A good idea that is to use tracker radar on the Super Hornet and have a backseater control radar. Exactly. For two-person Super Hornet with a scanner and tracker. It's literally called the radar operator, I believe. It's like radar information officer, RIO. They're called RIO seats for that reason. I thought the trackers might be good as a first strike scouts for org fleets. They might, but the problem about that is that you're still wasting a lot of firepower because Hornets don't have a ton of firepower on them stock. And if you replace the ball turret, that means you have 2, at most, fixed size 3s and then 1 fixed size 3 on the nose. So, like around I guess like a Gladius firepower. You're sacrificing a lot of firepower for tracking, which is going to make you very, very heavy. Very hot, I should say. Like, your EM signatures are going to be high as heck. Your IR signatures probably be very high because you have to run a lot of power to that thing. So, as a scout, it might make sense because you can see more things. But everyone will see you because you'll light up like a Christmas tree. Active scanning kind of thing. Make the tracker a baby AWACS. Yeah. Fun fact, it's a thing toyed with in Macross. Okay. Trouble, I think, is since component slots and ships are labeled as radar. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. If they're radar, then you might be able to swap out that radar subsystem for more detailed subsystems. You sometimes think Stair System will be better as an RTS? No, I think that RTSs would make sense. The kind of style of RTS gameplay would make sense for higher level fleet maneuvers. But I also think that that's endgame level years down the line. Actually had a friend with a tracker, so I got the super. Okay. I think Star System would make a great. I think it would. Squadron 88, yes. We're talking about someone was asking about the Lost Squad. That's Squadron 88. It's a squad that lost almost everybody during a Vandal attack. You don't mind the asking, what's an RTS? Real-time strategy. Somebody answer that. It was awesome. No problem there, After Effects. I'm glad you enjoyed it. We like to do that on after our podcast. I like to find someone who has 1, 2, 3 people watching them and like I haven't rated them in the past to kind of give them a boost, because as I usually say is like, who knows, that person could be your new favorite streamer, just because we gave them a shot. So hopefully you enjoyed it. That's something I hope for in capital ship combat. I don't think it'll. I mean, it might make sense for capital ship combat. I think when you're dealing with multiple capital ships and large fleets fighting each other, it's going to end up looking a lot like an RTS, just because you're going to have to track patterns. A lot of this stuff is going to be instinctual and training based. So fighters will fight the way they're trained to be. Bombers will trained to be. But there's definitely going to be some things for saying, hey, who the heck is that guy out behind the lines? Is that one of our guys? That kind of thing. Breaker of Macross. Radar Intercept Officer, Rio. Thank you. I thought it was Radar Intelligence Officer or something like that. But yeah, literally the seat's called the Rio seat because of radar. So it would make sense if they were using the radar. Real detailed scanning will also be an important for component of endgame salvage. It probably is. Radar Intercept Officer in F-15, but close. Okay, yeah. But I mean, Super Hornets have on the back. The second seat's called the Rio seat. They even refer to it as a Rio seat. The Cutlass has a back seat, which is referred to as a Rio seat. So, what did the Rio do in Tomcat again? More of a Navy term. WSO is the Air Force term. Yeah, and since most of the terms are stolen from the Navy for Star Citizen, they use Rio. Basically, what a Rio operator, what someone in the Rio seat does is usually radar-based, like tracking, and I think sometimes they deal with missiles. I don't know exactly the details behind it, but I know it's usually a supporting role to the pilot. The idea wouldn't have it to be as the mainline fighter. It would be a compromise, an effective C2 ship that can still fight if needed. Okay. With permadeath, cooperation and sacrificing for the team goes out the window. With permadeath, cooperation and sacrificing for the team goes out the window. I don't think so, man. I just don't think people are going to be fodder. I think you're definitely going to need to have balance. I think having someone as a radar operator whose sole job is to increase the range of people's radar so they have a better operational range in terms of knowing what's going on, that person is valuable. They're not going to get in a lot of combat. That person is still important to act like a AWACS to help other ships figure out what's going on around them. Now, that means you have to sacrifice one person who is in terms of combat effectiveness, but it increases the combat effectiveness of the rest of the team. It's all about MMO style gameplay. It's trying to have different roles that people can fit instead of everyone just being a fighter pilot or everyone just being, a gunner. Because people are like, I don't want to be a gunner. It's like, but if a gunner is effective, you want people in the gunner seat. If someone is going to be effective as to manage shields that can keep them alive longer, then that person isn't a waste. It's not a sacrifice just because they're not in a pilot seat. The other thing is that you can probably see further than most. They might be able to sit on the radar range and still see what you're doing. Exactly. Even as a single player handling a fleet and 2D-ish game. Fired radar guided missiles such as the Phoenix operated in aircraft's radar in general. Okay. Same thing, Pyro Nix Odin. After Squadron 4 release would be nice. All the systems are connected with jump points. Exactly, Sal. And I would like to think that it's Magnus is also coming in, but a lot of people are also thinking Terra because there is a Terra jump point from Stanton. So it's due to the fact that they control more of the ground ordnance and attack functions. The Air Force did use the Rio term for a short time before they moved to the WSO. Rio is well known due to the F-14 because of superior radar. As someone who owns a Tesla and other autonomy, why do we fly capital ships, fighters, and mid-range ships? Okay, but large or capital ships should fly like Ender's Game movie. What do you mean? I mean, capital ships are going to be slow and lumbering. You're going to more plot a course than you are going to actively fly a ship like a Idris. You don't actively manhandle an Idris. You just the idea was they're going to plot a course around stuff. If players could command an army of NPCs, it would work. I don't think you'd want to. I think with large organized groups, you need to have the ability to see those things and for someone to issue commands. And there's a reason why militaries use chain of command, because it makes communication and cooperation easier. And if everyone's just going to go off and be their own little hero, then you're going to die. To better people who are better organized and willing to, be more, do things for the group, No NPC computer autonomy on ship piloting. I don't think you're going to see computer autonomy on ship piloting. I don't think that's something you're going to see directly. Other than saying, like I said, plotting a course. Just because you're moving at such slow speeds, that doesn't really matter. Hey, Astro, is there anything in Star Citizen lore similar to the droid in Star Wars? There's been a couple of references, but nothing as sentient as a droid. And I think CIG would want to stay away from that as much as possible because the LucasArts and Disney own the term droid. And so if you say anything like droid, you can get sued without paying them a lot of money for using that term. And they want to stay in general, CIG wants to stay away from AI, like actual AI. And droids in like Star Wars are a lot more sentient or semi-sentient. So yes and no. There's been references to like a repair droid, that exists, but we don't know how much autonomous it is. Would be cool if you needed them to lock capital torpedo onto tornado trackers. That would be really cool if you could increase range of torpedoes with trackers. With trackers or terrapins, that they could increase the range of torpedoes because you have like a shot. Think of it like a ground operator on a with a laser guided ordnance in, like, you know, modern warfare. You can basically are painting a target from a distance so that bombers can fire torpedoes at longer ranges and not have to get closer into the combat zones. That would be kind of cool. That'd be a nice little addition. The dead servers we use is RCAF, which is an armor on the CF101, CF5, CF104, and CF16, 18. Okay. Would large ship battles look like Legends of the Galactic Heroes with blocks upon blocks of gun lines maneuvering ludicrously large numbers to a tune of classic orchestral music? Sure, of course. I think likely the way that most engagements would happen is by surprise, with one group prepared and the other one not. And you'd likely see something more akin to, this doesn't sound weird, but something out of like the Civil War era or World War II, where planes, in World War II planes would skirmish, but in like Civil War you'd often have cavalry would be the first people to meet each other and skirmish and go back to their lines. So like the scouts would skirmish with one another first, knowing that something is up. The attackers would essentially the first thing the defenders would know of attackers are scouts coming in. And then you would have the larger ships maneuvering into range to fire to bring their big guns to bear, while the fighter squadrons and bomber squadrons are trying to take out each other's bombers, and then whoever takes out the bombers, and those bombers would make bombing runs on the larger ships before the bigger ships could even get into range. If it's not all over by that time, then you have the larger ships coming in to duke it out, because the larger ships are going to be slower, but that's why fighter ships are important. That's kind of the way I see it. Why does the Army call Rio for helicopters? Just because they probably adopted it from the Navy. Manhandle and Idris. That's cool, Viper. But I want it to be in the Trade Federation and have a not droid army. Repair Bear. I forgot the name of it. It was an extension of the name of the droid was something like, it was a repair droid or repair bot is what they called it, and it was like an extension. It was something that would like repair your ship while you were there. I forgot the name of it. It was one of those funding goal like rewards. Everyone got it. Forest spotter with artillery too. Exactly, DFX. That's probably a better kind of analogy is a forward spotter with like a spotting plane being able to call in artillery. Let's code it. Hey, Loken. Did I get raided and I didn't know it? Like I got a lot of people watching. Why are you all here? When you banned AI, it was in reference to sentient AI, right? Yes. What we have now is we call AI isn't really AI compared to actual sentient computers. Amorph. I think the way I've heard it explained to me in terms of like modern day today, how most people talk about AI is you have AI which are built to do a very single task, and that's the kind of AI we have now, which is designed to automate one thing or to do one thing and to get better at that one thing. But it's not really, you can't really take an AI that's designed to teach you how to learn things better. That's badly worded, but that kind of idea. And teach you to do that, and then take that AI and then make it be in charge of a military. It doesn't know how to do that. It's designed to do one thing. Then you have sentient AI, which is about the same level as humans. And then you have super advanced AI, super intelligent AI, which is something beyond human capability. We're still under that level. Did we get rated? We did get rated with TV Liquid. Welcome everyone from TV Liquid stream. Let's do More beers for everybody. How's it going? Welcome to the Galactic Historian office hours. We're going a lot later than I was planning on, but it's all right. We're going to cut some stuff down anyways and kind of hanging out. We're going to hang out and talking all night, so. That's an actual raid, yes. How's it going, Morph? By the way, congratulations, Morph, on your check mark. For those who don't know, Morphologist, I recently got his partnership, which is pretty cool. Night there, Nas. And can we get a follow command on Twitch for TV Liquid? Fantastic streamer. Worth your time, worth your follow, worth your subscription. Like Halo's dumb AI that are one thing versus a smart AI which can learn a la Cortana. Something like that, yeah. And in Star Citizen lore, we have dumb AI, essentially. We have the same kind of AI that we have today. Maybe more advanced than we have today, but it's along the same lines. Anything sentient and above seems to have been banned. We may actually have sentient AI, but anything beyond that has been banned. They did exist. They did make sentient AI or possibly super AI that controlled entire starships. They all just went mad and tried to kill things, or screwed up really badly. So they made them, but they weren't working right. Morph's on Twitch is the reason why, if you guys are wondering, like, hey, I don't see Morph on YouTube. TV Liquid is an awesome content creator. What were you doing there, TV? Been watching your ARC vids the last couple of days, Morph. Been awesome stuff, yeah. Oh, it's treason then. Who's your favorite lore person? If you had to choose one, I quite like Silas Kerner. Silas Kerner is awesome. The founders of actually, you know what? I'm a little torn because I would like to say that the founders of Tumbril are some of my favorite people. The husband and wife team, because their story is really, really good. Like, I'd like to see their story in like a film. Or it's really good. It'd make a really interesting short film kind of thing, or film adaptation. But I also really like the founder of Crusader. I'm blanking on their names right now. I'll look up Crusader real quick, because Crusader's guy is really cool. So the founder of Crusader Industries is Auguste Dunlow. His story is crazy. I did a video on it, so you guys can watch that as well on Galactic Historian. But the short version, he was orphaned as a child during an attack by Linton Mezzer on Ulysses Mezzer. So by the last Mezzer on his father, because his father was opening up a big stadium in Angeli, in Croshaw. And there was an attack. That attack turned into a coup, and Linton eventually killed his father and took his place. But during the attack, his mother died and his father was seriously wounded. So he had to take care of his father, so he had to drop out of school. I think he was like 12. And then his father died because he couldn't make enough money to save them. So then he was, at like 12, he was brought into an orphanage. And he was lucky enough to work to get into a school while working in an orphanage, and ended up getting a scholarship to a university. He went to university. He got a degree in business. Was very charismatic, very well spoken. He knew what he was doing. Got involved in the anti-Mezzer movement against the UEE. Then they tried to kill him, so he escaped to Xi'an space. And in Xi'an space, he helped coordinate anti-Mezzer activities in UEE space. And then during the fall of the Mezzers, the Xi'an smuggled them back into the UEE, and he helped overthrow the Mezzers with his own skills. After the Mezzers were overthrown, he tried to work with the government to try to bring about better conditions for people overall. He was an activist because he lived such a bad young life. He didn't want other people to have like that. He found out quickly that government just didn't work very well. So instead, he founded a company, or he wanted to found a company. He ended up kind of buying a company and changing the name from what it was to Crusader, which they make shuttles. and he basically made Crusader as an excuse to give a bunch of money back to charity. Like a lot of the money that Crusader makes just goes to charity. So like his whole story is very interesting because he's like a natural businessman, but he's also got a very long righteous streak. He's a rebel, you know, literally a revolutionary who ended up founding a company. It's pretty cool. August Dunlow's, if there was an August Dunlow biopic, it would be amazing. No problem there, Evil Command. Can we get a follow command for Morph and for Loken, by the way, guys? Loken plays Morphologist, both fantastic content creators as well. That Starfarer review, though, I haven't watched it yet. All I saw was the title, which was an architect rants about the Starfarer, and I'm like, I gotta like actually sit down and watch this. I often have Morph's videos in the background when I'm like kind of cleaning up or something like that, kind of listening to it and kind of looking at that. It's like, oh, I gotta pay attention to this. Some popcorn. What is Morph angry about? Orphan to Freedom Fighter is to CEO, such a legend. Yeah. I just bought a hemp blonde ale. What do you think of this, Paul? That's it's not bad. I don't mind blonde ales. I hate IPAs just because I think they're oversaturated, but was there another consolidated Outland ship? What do you think it would make sense? I wouldn't be surprised if the refining ship was a consolidated Outland ship, just because that seems like a really up Silas Kerner's alley, which is like, you know, instead of going to get your mining's your ore refined, bring the refinery to the ore. Presenting the 2950 Consolidated Outlands Forge. Bring civilization to the wastes, you know? Star Citizen is so cinematic. Do you think Star Citizen can be a movie shot game? No, not in theaters. I think you could probably, they're like, check out Hard Space. I know that's the name of a game, but if you look up Star Citizen Hard Space, there's a series of films that are done by a film creator who uses Star Citizen. It is really impressive. There's also a Russian content creator who made a machinima recently. Both of those guys, there's a lot of people. There was the old Bulkheads comedy. There's the Letters from Vega, which is done in CryEngine, but it was using Star Citizen assets. All of those stuff were like, a lot of that stuff was early and basic, but like as it's been going on, a lot of people using in-game assets has been really cool. Logan, you're great. So much awesome tonight, I know. CIG recently went over how the company's mindsets and behaviors in Stanton, and they basically said that Crusader are easily the most genuine and willing to help for the people as a whole. They sort of fail in the security department, which is why they don't really have the government experience and resources. Exactly, Moody's. I kind of made that. I made that case in the Jumptown Wars video, which is the reason why Jumptown was so effective in lore, is because Crusader doesn't take care of its own security bases very well. But Hurston is bad because it's basically a feudal state with the Hurstons as the lords, and then their overseers as the vassals, and then the peasants below as everybody else, because they basically enslaved. They're basically serfs, the workers of Hurston. Then you have ArcCorp, which is like 20th century, late 19th century, early 20th century coal mining towns is essentially what it is. You know, everything's paid in company script. You're stuck working there because you never can make enough money to get out. The conditions are deadly. You're going to die if you work in their fusion factories. They're not so great, but it's not just those people who work there. It's a lot of other people. ArcCorp is the closest thing you're going to get to like a cyberpunk style like world, where the mega corporations control everything and the street punks are trying to make do kind of thing. Then you have Microtech, who is Silicon Valley. It's space Silicon Valley. all of the pretentiousness and all of the technology. I'd love to see a Constellation, competitor from Consolidated Outlands. Sonic Temples, yes, that one. Those are the guys who make Hard Space. It's think of it as Grindhouse films done with Star Citizen. What's wrong with what, Xander? Make sure everyone's productive. Work or we kill you. What gameplay loop, the scavenge, medical, etc., are you most ready to see? Medical, probably. Though bounty hunting would be the one I think is the closest one to get done. That and piracy. Meanwhile, Microtech are all over capturing people with golden handcuffs. Yeah. What's the plan in regards to planets such as ArcCorp? How much of it are we going to be able to go to, interact with, and use? How much of it will be set dressing, if you get my drift? I think most of it's going to be set dressing. Likely all of the major, if you look at all of the major high rises that you can land on, they have doors. Like, you can land a ship on it if it's got a pad. They have doors that you can open and get into, like almost like an elevator. I think the plan is that a lot of those high rises will be mission locations in the future, but I don't think ArcCorp is going to be. You're not going to be able to go down to the bottom of ArcCorp. You'll be able to get to Area 18 and then on top of some of the buildings, and that's about it. But there's a lot of areas in ArcCorp. There's a lot of buildings, tall buildings. So. We're good as paint scraping. How's that? That a salvage op? I think when they talk about scraping, they're not talking about paint scraping. They're talking about scraping in the sense of scraping the materials off of the fuselage, essentially mulching a ship. If you've played Hard Space, the other Hard Space, Shipbreaker, a good example of that, which is a great game, by the way. A lot of the parts of a ship that you salvage in the Hard Space Shipbreaker is you actually go in and get the valuable parts, the core, the power plants, the computers, the seats, that kind of thing. I think in Star Citizen is going to be more simple than that. It's going to go get the components, like pull the power plant out, pull the quantum drive out, pull the engines off, pull the thrusters off, pull the computers out, pull the maybe even pull the seats out, the coolers, the shield generators, those kind of things. If you can find them that are functioning, you pull those out first, you go store them, and then you just take that ship and you scrape it for all the materials it's got. Essentially, you take your little claw, you grab the ship, you throw it in your grinder, it goes nom 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 nom, and then gets sorted into different components of like aluminum, titanium, unobtainium, whatever it is. I think that's what, when they say scraping, that's what they're talking about. I'm sure they'll flesh out more of the buildings as they got content gets interested in the game. Yeah, I think they want to finish Stanton first before they go back and try to look over some of those things. It'd be cool if you could secure a warehouse or something that could be accessible via rooftop on ArcCorp. That would probably make sense too. Because, you don't actually have to see outside of the building. You just go into a building, you click a button, you go down, and then you're inside. Yeah, and ArcCorp will get some water soon too. I saw one of the devs mention paint scraping in Star Citizen video. That's what he meant, though, Tire Chasers, when he talks about paint scraping. He's talking about, like, scraping the material off of it. That's what I took away from it. Got a boogie, thanks for the chats. Yeah, I'm probably going to call it a night here, guys, because we're well over our normal times of 2 hours. So, what do you think of the Cutlass Black? Great ship. Not a good ship in terms of, like, it's not a good ship for combat. It's not a good ship for trading. But if you want to do both, perfect. I love it for smuggling. It has just enough cargo for smuggling, has just enough firepower to make people back off, and it's fast in a straight line comparative to other ships of its size. It's good, but you really got to know what you want to do with it. Because if you want to be a trader, just buy a Freelancer. If you want to be a combat pilot, just get a Hornet or a Saber. They're better. It needs a better name. It does. I think just calling it scraping would make sense. What do you think of the Cutlass Black? Oh, yeah, so that. I'm ready to see CIG sell CCU to an alien ship, like alien torp bomber, hauler, salvager. It'd be interesting to see those. I don't think they'll do those because a lot of those are just not necessary. Some of them are probably necessary for storytelling. Like I could see every race except for maybe the Tevarin have a sort of transport, Xi'an transport, Banu Merchantman, which is the transport, and Vandul transport maybe. But other than that, the hull of a ship, yeah, rather than salvage, which would be crushing, melting the rest of the ship's chassis. Okay, Fizzle, that makes sense. So you've got like the plating on top of the fuselage that you pull off. That's scraping, and then you actually have the crushing and of the actual fuselage. You've got the frame, you've got the panels, and then you've got the internals. You pull the internals out, then you scrape by pulling the panels off, and then you just crush the rest of the fuselage into usable parts. That makes sense. Animal hunter ship when? Why would you want an animal hunter ship? Whaling ship. From hell's heart I stab at thee, space whale. One day. First alien mission giver. Tevarin probably, or Banu, would be my guess. I wouldn't doubt it at some point. Alright guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Matters. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Love you guys' faces. You guys rock. Remember, though, we will not be streaming tomorrow until Saturday. We won't be streaming again until Saturday. I'm kind of taking this week off. We're still giving away that Prospector, exclamation point June, if you're in Twitch chat. I can't really link you guys the link for YouTube because YouTube's a little wiggy about that kind of stuff. They're a little wigged out about it. So you got to go to the Discord or you have to go to Twitch to be able to get that link. I'll have a Discord link. I think I have it in the main page. So you can click that and try to go there. If not, I'll definitely update it by the time this video goes live to everybody else who's not live. I'm trying to see what else. Yeah, we'll be back for more stuff. Oh, for those of you guys who are watching on YouTube or on Twitch, be sure to check out the YouTube because we'll be doing a Tevarin. The next episode of Galactic Historians coming out this week, and it's going to probably be Thursday, and it's going to be on the Tevarin. I've already done the recording. I just got to edit it together, so keep an eye out for that. And like I say every time, guys, hope to see you guys again soon. But if I don't, hope to see you someday in the black. Later, guys.